Chapter 539. In the cafe, Yang Huan, who was wearing a school bag and dressed like a good student, followed Yang Yi into the cafe amidst the cheers. Seeing this scene, she smiled and waved at everyone. The burden that she had been carrying for a long time seemed to have been lifted. Congratulations, Huan Huan. You've finally overcome the difficulties of the college entrance examination. Murphy walked in front with a bouquet of flowers that she had personally selected. The flowers were bright yellow, light pink, and elegant purple. The combination of the three colors looked very beautiful. Yang Huan took the flowers and smiled sweetly at Murphy. Thank you, sister-in-law. Not only Murphy, but also Ding Xiang, Guizi, and other friends congratulated and wished Yang Huan well. After all, the college entrance examination was not easy. Most of them had experienced it before. The hubbub lasted for a while before it died down. Huan Huan, what are you going to do with the rest of the holiday? Murphy sat at the bar and asked curiously, Are you going to travel? Many students chose to travel after graduation. Not only college graduates, but also high school graduates began to travel. This had already become a common phenomenon in society. Yang Huan smiled and said, I've already made a plan. I'll go home first to accompany my parents. Then I'll come back to Jiangcheng. When Sister Ding Xiang is on holiday, I'll go to her Miao village with her. When we come back from the mountain, we'll go to the capital to shoot a movie. Just like Xiaoguo last year, she'll play a small role and gain experience. Ding Xiang is going to shoot a movie too? Murphy looked at Ding Xiang in surprise. Ding Xiang waved her hand in embarrassment and said, I'm going with Huan Huan. Sister Ding Xiang is going to be my agent, Yang Huan said with a smile. Sister-in-law, didn't you say that you wanted Sister Ding Xiang to be your agent? She can also use the holiday to learn. Sister Xiaowan is also very supportive of Sister Ding Xiang going with me during the holiday. Murphy didn't care about this. She just smiled and said, So that's how it is. That's good. Ding Xiang can also take care of your life. Yang Yi walked over and overheard their conversation. He smiled and said, Ding Xiang used to do all kinds of part-time jobs and even set up her own stall. She can be considered to have rich social experience. Huan Huan is bold and also has skills, but she doesn't have much social experience. I'm afraid that she will be fooled. With Ding Xiang around, the two of them complement each other. I don't have to worry too much. Yang Huan had mentioned this to Yang Yi before, but Yang Yi was worried that Yang Huan would be alone outside, let alone in that kind of place. Later, Yang Huan said that Ding Xiang would go with her, and he reluctantly agreed. In fact, it was better for Guizi to accompany them. After all, Guizi had been there last year, and was more familiar with the area. Moreover, this guy was better at dealing with those people than Ding Xiang. However, Guizi had to shoot a movie during this holiday. He was filming The Fugitive with Yang Yi, so he didn't have time. Moreover, Yang Yi was worried about Guizi. Although they were friends, he felt that it was absolutely impossible for Guizi to be his brother-in-law. This guy, when Yang Yi first met him last year, he was still strolling around Jiangchuan's campus as a high school student. He wanted to see pretty girls with a cheeky smile. What a playboy! Even if Guizi didn't have such feelings for Yang Huan, Yang Yi still had to be careful and keep Guizi away from his sister. I feel that I will be the one protecting Sister Ding Xiang. Yang Huan muttered unhappily. Murphy changed the topic. She still didn't understand and asked, Huan Huan, why don't you go to some tourist spots? For example, the South China Sea or my hometown, Taiwan Island. It's rare for you to have such a big exam. I thought you would let yourself relax. Is it because you don't want to go out? It's okay. Even if your brother doesn't give you money, your sister-in-law will. It's not a bad thing to go out and travel. Murphy thought that Yang Huan was too shy to ask her brother for money. Moreover, Yang Yi did limit Yang Huan's pocket money. He didn't want her to spend lavishly after she had some money. He didn't want her to be captivated by money and become a bad girl. That's not the case. Yang Huan smiled and said to Murphy, It's not because of my brother. It's mainly because I'm curious about Sister Ding Xiang's hometown and want to have a look. Also, Sister Ding Xiang and I don't have much time. We don't have much time to travel. Murphy still felt that it was a pity. The next day, Yang Yi still came to the coffee shop. Murphy was upstairs helping Yang Huan pack her luggage. She was going to send Yang Huan to take the train back to her hometown. Yang Yi didn't have much to do, so he asked Ding Xiang to make a cup of coffee for him in the coffee shop downstairs. Ding Xiang, it's a holiday and you're all going out. There aren't many customers during the holiday, so I've decided to renovate it. Yang Yi pointed at the interior of the coffee shop and said to Ding Xiang. He had this idea after the Chinese New Year. At that time, he and Shishi were shopping on the streets of Shanghai. They happened to have a chance to see the decorations of other artistic coffee shops. He suddenly felt that his coffee shop had a lot of room for improvement. However, his relationship with Murphy was suddenly exposed, and there were a lot of troublesome things after that. He put this idea aside. Yang Yi didn't come to the coffee shop as often as before. One of the reasons was that there were more things between him and Murphy. Another reason was that the coffee shop had been closely watched by the paparazzi. Now the reporters and paparazzi around the coffee shop had all left. After all, Yang Yi didn't appear often. Even if he did, it was just a repeat of his daily life. If it wasn't a particularly shocking piece of news, it wouldn't attract the attention of the audience at all. In addition, Yang Yi and Murphy's relationship was very stable. There was almost no chance to report on them. The couple was too low-key. They didn't even look like celebrities. What was there to report on? It should be known that the entertainment industry was very competitive. Yang Yi didn't want to be on the news. There were a lot of celebrities who pretended to be fake and wanted to be on the headlines. The paparazzi didn't have the patience to play with Yang Yi and his wife every day. Hearing Yang Yi's words, Ding Xiang curiously asked, "Big brother Yang, how do you want to renovate?" Ding Xiang's question was just right. Yang Yi said excitedly, "I plan to change these seats. Did you notice that our coffee shop is made of wood? I want to replace the original fiberglass table with wood, and then change the sofa to the corresponding color. It will be more suitable." "Wouldn't that cost a lot of money?" Ding Xiang said in surprise. "Money isn't a problem. The problem is how to design this coffee shop to look better and have more feelings." Yang Yi laughed. "In the future, I want to come here to read books and drink coffee. In the end, it's a little lacking in feeling at home." Yang Yi had already thought about it. In terms of design, he would use some flowers and plants to separate his exclusive booth. Although it would still be in the same space, other customers wouldn't be able to see if there was anyone or what was happening in the booth, ensuring privacy. At that time, even Murphy could come to read books and listen to music. Staying at home all day wasn't a good thing for pregnant women. "The wallpaper needs to be changed. Then I plan to remove these partitions and replace them with stair-shaped bookshelves that can be planted with flowers. I'll use green plants and flowers to increase the coffee shop's natural atmosphere." Yang Yi had a lot of ideas, but he hasn't completely mixed them together. "I want to make the bar's wall into a whiteboard. Every once in a while, I can draw some pictures on it. Of course, customers are also welcome to doodle on it." The renovations that Yang Yi mentioned were only changes at the level of decoration. There was no need to use a strong smell, paint, and other complicated materials that weren't good for the body. Because there were still customers coming in, Ding Xiang was also busy. So after Yang Yi chatted with Ding Xiang for a while, he returned to his booth. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He picked up a stack of notes and recorded the thoughts that appeared in his mind. At this time, the door of the coffee shop was pushed open again. "Welcome." Ding Xiang raised her head, but she was immediately stunned. She had seen this handsome boy before. Chapter 540. The memory of a straight-A student was indeed good. It was only a few months away from a year, but Ding Xiang could still recognize Tang Kaitai, who she had seen from afar during the freshman orientation. This young master was still the same as when she first saw him, a little sunny and handsome, but Ding Xiang knew all the bad things this guy had done. Whether it was because he was unhappy with Guozi's part that he deliberately ditched Du Yuanlei's movie, or because Qianli Chuanshu had been swindled by the contract and was shelved, Ding Xiang now saw that Tang Kaitai's so-called sunny and handsome face was just a pretense. Ding Xiang's smile faded. However, she was, after all, a waitress, not a boss. The hatred in her heart couldn't be shown on her face. she called out to Tang Kaitai indifferently. However, Tang Kaitai's attention wasn't entirely on her. The moment he entered, Tang Kaitai looked around as if he was looking for someone. In the end, his gaze fell on Yang Yi, who was scribbling on his seat in the corner. Tang Kaitai's eyes lit up. However, he remained calm and walked towards Ding Xiang. "Miss, a cup of Santos." He even revealed a charming smile and deliberately made small talk. "I've long heard that there's a coffee shop at the back of Jiangchuan that serves authentic coffee. Since I don't have any filming today, I came over to take a look. I never expected that the waitress would be such a beautiful girl." Ding Xiang didn't see through his intentions. She only thought that Tang Kaitai was just trying to hit on her. As a waitress at the coffee shop at the corner of the street, Ding Xiang had encountered many boys who tried to curry favor with her. After all, the uniform made by Yang Yi was still very attractive. It vividly displayed Ding Xiang's slender figure and slender waist. Some of the boys who liked wheat-colored skin launched a fierce attack on Ding Xiang, asking for her phone number in all kinds of fancy ways. Unfortunately, Ding Xiang did not give any response to their efforts. Ding Xiang nodded her head at Tang Kaitai. She didn't say a word and coldly turned her head. She began to grind beans. After a while, she brought him a cup of Santos. Tang Kaitai was a little surprised by Ding Xiang's coldness. His flirting skills had been tested countless times, so why didn't it have any effect on Ding Xiang? However, Tang Kaitai did not take this matter to heart for the time being, because he had more important things to do. He took out the money, picked up the coffee, smiled and nodded at Ding Xiang, then walked in the direction of Yang Yi. "Hey, you can't sit over there." Ding Xiang reacted and quickly walked out of the bar. Just as she was about to tell Tang Kaitai not to disturb Yang Yi, Tang Kaitai exclaimed, "Hey, aren't you Yang Yi?" Tang Kaitai carefully held the steaming hot coffee. He was so shocked that people almost thought that he had scalded his hand. Yang Yi frowned and looked up. Tang Kaitai didn't know that he had been recognized long ago. He still pretended to express his surprise. "Yang Yi, I've seen you in many reports. You're Murphy's husband and a great songwriter who has written many songs. I'm your fan." This clumsy acting was as bad as his character. Yang Yi signaled to Ding Xiang, who had rushed over, with his eyes, telling her not to bother. Then, without batting an eyelid, he continued to watch Tang Kaitai's performance with ridicule in his heart. "Really, I'm your fan. Although I'm actually an actor and singer, I debuted as a child star, but I'm not a big star." Tang Kaitai explained, trying to describe his identity. "But I'm really your fan. I like your songs very much. For example, Long Time No See, which you wrote for Chun Yijie. I can sing it for you." There were rumors in the industry that Yang Yi would not casually write songs for others. He would only write songs for singers with good singing skills, such as Chun Yijie and Murphy, who were top singers. However, for some reason, or perhaps because he had been praised too much, Tang Kaitai had a crazy confidence in his singing skills. Tang Kaitai wanted to show off his singing voice in front of Yang Yi, so he took an inch and wanted a mile. He put the coffee on Yang Yi's table, cleared his throat, and prepared to sing. "Stop, stop, stop. Don't sing." Yang Yi still couldn't help it. He didn't want this person to sing his song, so he directly stopped Tang Kaitai. Tang Kaitai looked at Yang Yi with a confused face. "Don't pretend to meet by chance. From the moment you entered the door, your eyes have been on me. So you didn't come to drink coffee at all, but specifically to find me, right?" Yang Yi simply exposed him. Tang Kaitai froze for a moment, then smiled awkwardly. "Mr. Yang is really observant. You even found out." However, Yang Yi still underestimated Tang Kaitai's thick skin. He directly sat down in front of Yang Yi and said with a smile, "In this case, let me formally introduce myself. My name is Tang Kaitai. I'm an actor and also a singer. My father is the head of the Xiangnan Television Bureau. I believe that in the future, we will have many opportunities to cooperate." After being exposed, he proudly showed off his background and looked like he was used to it. Yang Yi couldn't help but think of the deceitful, "My father is Li Gang" from his previous life. In comparison, Yang Yi felt that the other young master he knew from the entertainment industry was much cuter. "I know you are Tang Kaitai, hehe. But I don't have a good impression of you. You should know that." Yang Yi laughed and said coldly, I invested in the micro-movie Fairy Tale. Oh yes, when you were still shooting it, it was called Love Alley. But your approach at that time was very despicable. So, do you think I will have a good impression of you? Yang Yi felt that he was already restraining himself by not driving him out. This you are talking about this matter? I have my difficulties. Because at that time, there was an emergency at home. Tang Kaitai heard Yang Yi mention Love Alley, and immediately remembered this matter. But his ability to adapt was not enough. He stammered and found an excuse full of loopholes. He might as well not look for it. Tang Kaitai said resentfully, Mr. Yang, I think we shouldn't take the past to heart. You and Murphy's development also needs the support of the TV station. In Xiangnan, that is my dad's place. Even if you go to other TV stations, my dad also has connections. There will always be a time when we work together. This could be said to be a vague threat. Moreover, I want you to write a song for me, not to deceive anyone. It's a win-win situation. Tang Kaitai calmed down and said to Yang Yi with a smile. Yang Yi looked at him faintly. Please leave. I will not write a song for you. But you haven't heard me sing. Tang Kaitai was struggling. Yang Yi reached out and said, no matter how good you are at singing, even better than Chen Yijie, I will not write a song for you. He didn't say the details. Tang Kaitai's character was too bad, but Yang Yi didn't directly flip the table in this shop. He didn't want Tang Kaitai to know his relationship with Thousand Miles Chuanshu. If he knew, it wouldn't be beneficial for Thousand Miles Chuanshu to make a comeback. Tang Kaitai's face became a little uncertain. However, in the end, he didn't make a scene like Yang Yi expected. Perhaps he still had a glimmer of hope. Tang Kaitai stood up resentfully and said, Mr. Yang, I hope that one day, you can change your mind. Love Alley isn't as simple as you think. As for what wasn't simple, Tang Kaitai hadn't figured it out yet. After saying that, Tang Kaitai held back his anger and walked out angrily. Ding Xiang came out from the bar, and was almost hit by him. Chapter 541. Yang Huan went home. Although the results of the college entrance examination were not known, it should not be a problem for her to pass the cultural test. After all, Yang Huan used to study in high school according to the normal college entrance examination. Even if her results were not ideal, it was still relative to ordinary students. She usually did test papers, and could still exceed the cutoff score of the art test by 100 or 200 points. Therefore, as long as she could perform normally in the college entrance examination, the possibility of her failing was not high. A few days after Yang Huan went home, Murphy finally updated her micro-broadcasting under the numerous requests of her fans. Tomorrow Yang Yi and I will jointly release 4 singles or small albums, with a new theme and a breakthrough attempt. However, they are all new songs that no one has heard before. I hope you will like them. Finally, new songs? Judging from the micro-broadcasting, Murphy also had a part in it, not just Yang Yi's singles. Murphy's fans were really surprised and surprised. Some of them could not even believe their eyes. After all, Murphy's last micro-broadcasting was during Yang Huan's college entrance examination. She had completed her big homework and received a little red flower. Murphy was so happy that she took a photo of the little red flower, and she observing the results of the little goldfish. Micro-broadcasting was also very interesting, but what the fans wanted to see more was the news of Murphy's new songs. This time there were 4 new songs. No matter how many songs Murphy could sing, Murphy, who had disappeared for a few months, finally released a new song, which was enough to make the fans go wild with joy. The next day, the online music library was updated at noon. Yang Yi and Mo Fei's 4 new songs also appeared in people's vision on time. We Became Soldiers, To Tell the Truth, were sung by Yang Yi. 15th Moon and Soldier Brother were sung by Murphy. Wait, what the hell were these 4 songs? Why did they look like military songs? No wonder it was called a small album. It turned out to be a small album with a military theme. Not to mention that the fans were a little confused. The media who rushed over after hearing the news were also stunned at the computer. Before this, they had not received any news that Yang Yi would sing these 4 songs, nor did they know how they pulled out 4 military songs. The 2 of them were originally singing pop songs. If they suddenly went to sing military songs, wouldn't that be nonsense? It was as if Andy Lau, who had been singing traditional pop music, suddenly sang tune air. It was hard for people to accept. But no matter how crazy Yang E and Murphy were to sing military songs, many fans who had been waiting for a long time still doubtfully bought the 4 songs to listen to. For a while, the song with the highest sales was still 15th Moon. This song didn't look like a military song, and it was slightly similar to the title of a pop song. However, in the beginning, it was still a completely military song. The moon of the 15th shines on my hometown on the border. If they calmed down, it was not difficult for some fans to find that these military songs were not as bad as they thought. In particular, Murphy sang 15th Moon. The unique retro singing style, coupled with Murphy's gentle, mellow, and clear voice, vividly interpreted the tenderness and perseverance of this song. Ah, there is my sweetness in the harvest fruit, and there is also your sweetness. The military medal is half yours and half mine. Especially the high notes in this section. They were high but not sharp, high but not harsh. She was able to perform the guttural sounds that ordinary people would not be able to sing with ease. If 15th Moon was a retro song, then Brother Soldier had an additional layer of folk elements. Moreover, in this song, Mo Fei's singing method of raising her voice was even more amazing. Soldier brother who wants me to die. From the first sentence, Murphy began to raise the pitch of her voice to the level that would give people goosebumps. If it had to be described, it could only be said that it was as high-pitched as a swona, and it was so high-pitched that it almost didn't drop. It was as if her voice was such a voice. It was good to listen to, but the fans were also shocked by the lyrics of this song. In any case, 15th Moon had some literary talent, but Soldier Brother was almost as straightforward as some folk songs. For example, the lyrics at the back, such as I really want to send him a ball of fire, and Soldier Brother, a star in my heart, and Sister wants to cross the river, who will push me? Didn't it have the same effect? Of course, when Mo Fei sang Soldier Brother, there was no explicit provocation. She used simple and plain words to describe how difficult it was for the wife to take care of the family when the soldiers were stationed outside. She also described how the wife still had tender feelings for her sweetheart when she took on the responsibility. At night, he is the dream on my pillow. During the day, he is the song in my mouth. Although Murphy sang the lyrics in a high-pitched tone, through special pronunciation, the strong feelings in the lyrics were conveyed in this song. Especially the small explosion of tone in the word pillow. It was even more tender and made people's hearts tremble. Suddenly, the image of the soldier's partner in the whole song suddenly came alive. The fans who were listening attentively could feel it. It was as if at this moment, they could see a little wife holding a letter from her sweetheart under the dim yellow light of the night. She was crying and smiling happily at the same time. Whether it was the affectionate 15th Moon, the strong and affectionate Soldier Brother, whether it was the imposing We Soldiers, or the firm and tender To Tell the Truth, these songs reflected the singing skills of Yang E and Murphy incisively and vividly. Fans who really liked listening to good songs and appreciating the meaning of music would be able to find something they liked in these songs after letting go of their initial misunderstandings and listening carefully. However, not all fans were fans, and not all fans were old. There were still a considerable number of fans who were young and listened to the songs for fun, or felt that Yang E and Murphy should sing romantic pop songs. They had come for the fame of the two of them, only to hear 4 old military songs, which really annoyed them. So on the first day, under the comments of these songs, there were a lot of bad reviews that gave very low scores. Abandon the pit, return the goods, you can sing any song, but you have to change your style and sing some rubbish military songs. Is it Yang E and Murphy, you husband and wife, who are arrogant, or we can't raise the big knife? After waiting for a few months, you played such a trick on us? Military songs are really not good to listen to. After listening to a few sentences, I'll turn it off. I'm here to advise other fans who want to buy it not to be deceived. The so-called small album this time has 4 songs that are very bad. It's not the original classic. It is not worth our money to buy it. Of course, these extreme bad reviews only accounted for a part. Although some fans did not like the 4 songs very much, they still gave more pertinent comments. I have to say that the quality of the songs written by Yang Yi is still good. Murphy and Yang Yi's singing is also very wonderful. It's a pity that I don't like military songs very much, so I can't appreciate it. Murphy subverts her own soldier brother. In fact, it's very interesting to listen to it with your eyes closed. The high notes are very addictive. It's just that when I think of the affectionate song, Listen to the Sea, that she once sang, I can't accept this military song. Give it a moderate review. Among these comments, there were some who expressed that they were very satisfied and liked these songs. There were even some fans who might be veterans or had a military background who gave eloquent and lengthy comments. It was as if these 4 songs had triggered some special feelings and memories in them. These 4 songs attracted the attention of countless people on the first day of release, and the mixed reviews were really surprising. The media reporters knew that the onlookers were eager to know the reason why Murphy and Yang Yi made such a subversive change, so they also dug up the news behind it. However, Yang Yi and Murphy still could not be interviewed. What should they do? It didn't matter. If there was no news, they could make it up. The next day, a considerable part of the media dug out a possibility through some of Yang Yi's recent itineraries. Releasing 4 military songs, Yang Yi and Murphy did not want to make a breakthrough in music. They were actually just promoting the TV series of the same name, Soldier's Assault, adapted from Yang Yi's works. Yes, in June, didn't Yang Yi attend the press conference for the completion of Soldier's Assault? In their eloquent description, it seemed that Yang Yi and Murphy were brewing a big conspiracy. By suddenly releasing 4 military songs, they stirred up the feelings of the soldiers, so as to pave the way for the promotion of Soldier's Assault. However, they were also criticizing. Isn't Yang Yi a bit too much? The People's Army is serious and inviolable. How can you be allowed to stir up people's feelings for the soldiers to achieve your purpose of profit? It seemed that this statement was reasonable, and some onlookers did not like this kind of hype. Yang Yi and Murphy, who were still in the dark, were suddenly pushed to the forefront of the storm. Chapter 542. Mo Xiaowan naturally wouldn't sit back and watch the media stir up trouble. It just so happened that the public relations department of Hua Yi Brothers was newly established, so this was an opportunity to test it. The night the public opinion appeared in the media, the public relations department managed by Xiao AI released a statement through the official Phoebe Studio micro-broadcasting. The 4 new songs released by Yang Yi and Murphy have nothing to do with the promotion of Soldier's Assault, nor are they hype like some media outlets said. The reason why they release 4 military songs is because Yang Yi used to be a soldier, and he wants to create some military songs for his comrades in the old army. At the same time, Murphy and Yang Yi's accounts also reposted this micro-broadcasting. This was their first clarification. Interestingly enough, maybe the staff around him reminded Chen Fengchen. The next day, the old man also opened his own micro-broadcasting account and applied to become a verified VIP. The old man was old but not old. He was very skilled at operating the computer. Even though it was just a finger tap, he still typed out what he wanted to say. He reposted this micro-broadcasting and said humorously, "Xiao Yang, don't block my words. After listening to your and Murphy's 4 songs, I want to use them as theme songs and TV series interludes." Of course, the old man also sent a micro-broadcasting to clarify for Yang Yi. This is indeed a misunderstanding. People who are familiar with Yang Yi will know how lazy he is. Forget about hype. He doesn't even want to participate in ordinary promotional activities. As the original author of Soldier's Assault, he didn't want to come to the press conference before the start of filming. He was invited several times before he could come to the press conference. Let me ask you, how could such an outstanding author, who is above the common populace, do something even more outrageous like moral kidnapping? If Yang Yi and Murphy's self-clarification wasn't very convincing, then Chen Fengchen's statement was extra powerful. The media's criticism of Yang Yi began to die down. Instead, some quick-witted reporters abandoned their reports on Yang Yi's new song and ran to Beijing to look for Chen Fengchen. Chen Fengchen was much easier to interview than Yang Yi. The old man had no choice but to pick a media outlet that he was more familiar with, and accepted their interview. In this interview, the main topic was still Soldier's Assault, But the reporter still asked about Yang Yi. Chen Fengchen was still very willing to tell them about how he met Yang Yi. After all, Yang Yi and Murphy's relationship had already been made public. There was no need to keep some things that couldn't be said back then a secret. Yang Yi and Chen Fengchen's acquaintance was actually Chen Fengchen's personal visit. This big news made the reporters extremely excited. Chen Fengchen was a famous director and was highly respected. Yet Yang Yi had actually asked him to look for him. Fortunately, Chen Fengchen also knew that some reporters liked to beat around the bush. He went straight to the point. Don't say that I visited him 3 times. At that time, Yang Yi didn't know who I was and didn't know why I went to look for him. I saw that Little Yang's work was so good that I was worried that others would take away the film and television rights. So I directly asked the publisher for Little Yang's address and found him. Speaking of which, it's quite interesting. Yang Yi didn't recognize me, but Murphy was there at the time. She sang the ending song of one of my TV series and recognized me. When Chen Fengchen thought about it, he could not help but chuckle. Moreover, when I saw Yang Yi, I was a little surprised because I thought that the author who could create a work like Drawing Sword should be an old man like me who is more sensitive to the history of the war in the past. I didn't expect it to be a young man. He's too young. Chen Fengchen sighed. Then Director Chen, what do you think of Yang Yi? Because he rarely appears in front of the media. Many fans are eager to know what kind of person he is. The reporter followed Chen Fengchen's words and asked. Chen Fengchen thought for a moment and said, Little Yang is a very talented child, whether it's his musical creation or his literary creation. Am I right? I don't need to say that. Everyone can see it. However, I also want to say that Little Yang is a relatively low-key and hardworking person. Being low-key is an excellent quality that our impetuous entertainment industry lacks. Everyone knows that it's too easy to make money in the entertainment industry. There are more than 1 billion Chinese people in mainland China. The market is too big and the pie is too big. Just a little bit of it, and you can make a lot of money. That's why too many people are rushing in. But they just want to make money. Scandals and hype. Today they're hyping up the little fresh meat. Tomorrow they're hyping up the pretty starlets. As long as they can increase their traffic, they're not afraid of not making money. However, what kind of works can they produce? Can they stand the test of time? Chen Fengchen had long been disgusted by the impetuous atmosphere of the entertainment industry in the new era. This time, he used his evaluation of Yang Yi to express his feelings. I won't talk about anything else. Let's talk about that night. That was very popular last month, right? I have an assistant who was listening to the song too. The lyrics were unbearable to the ear. I have no idea how that singer wrote such a song. Look, I don't even remember his name. Chen Fengchen said. Zhu Jie was unwittingly implicated. And Chen Fengchen didn't know that the instigator behind this was the Yang Yi he was praising. Chen Fengchen continued to speak frankly. He used Yang Yi as a positive example. I saw that some media outlets were surprised by Yang Yi's creative speed. However, with such a vigorous creative state, have you ever thought about how much effort he put in behind it? If he was like those little fresh meats, showing off in front of the media every day, unable to complete his daily schedule, how would he have the energy to create? It's precisely because he's low-key and hard-working that he was able to create so many classic works that people can't bear to part with. Director Chen, do you also like Yang Yi's new songs? The reporter asked. Of course. When I heard these songs, my mind was suddenly filled with memories of my days in the army many years ago. I'm already in my 60s, yet I still cry like a child. Chen Fengchen lamented without hiding anything. Chen Fengchen's interview hadn't been reported yet, but Yang Yi's fans, who were slow to react online, finally heard Yang Yi's new songs. It had to be said that among these fans, most of them had followed Yang Yi since Soldier's Assault, so they had a special interest in the army. After hearing these military songs, they felt very emotional. Naturally, they weren't like ordinary fans. They especially admired these songs and couldn't help but recommend them to their friends. And very quickly, they found out from Yang Yi's personal website that the media was attacking Yang Yi. Immediately, they were unhappy and started to support Yang Yi. What do you know? Yang Yi singing military songs couldn't be more suitable, okay? Even old Mu, who had a meal with Yang Yi, said that Yang Yi personally confirmed that he was a soldier. He was a soldier, so why is singing military songs a publicity stunt? They're criticizing such good songs. Is there something wrong with the music industry's brain? Nowadays, the pop music industry seems to have less and less room for the existence of old songs, but I like Yang Yi's old songs. I hope that friends who share the same interests can support Yang Yi. Don't let tradition become history. The support of Chen Fengchen and many older artists who like Yang Yi's songs, coupled with more and more people who were attracted by the excellence of these songs, finally shook off the criticism that everyone wanted to get involved in. Originally, the Southwest Military Region's Art Troupe and Publicity Department were still preparing a publicity plan for Yang Yi. They also knew that there was a misunderstanding in the media and had received instructions from their superiors to clear Yang Yi's name. But before they could slowly respond, the direction of public opinion in the report had taken a 180-degree turn. The media was praising Yang Yi and Murphy for their brave breakthrough. The music critics were surprisingly unanimous and gave the four songs very high praise. Military songs were going to be popular. Chapter 543. Although the music industry was stirred up by Yang Yi and Murphy's new songs, it seemed that many media outlets were reporting on these four songs, and it seemed that many people were also paying attention to these four songs, but the resurgence of military songs was actually an illusion. After all, the times were moving forward and developing. Among young people, there were only a few who liked these retro songs. Although the best song 15th Moon had unintentionally borrowed the wind of public opinion to reach the top 10 of the new song sales chart, it was only limited to that. It was weak and gradually fell with the decline in popularity. Of course, this was also related to the fact that Yang Yi and Murphy didn't participate in any chart shows at all, didn't accept variety show invitations, and lacked publicity. What's more, they were overwhelmingly praised by the music critics. It turned out that the music critics' vision was still a little different from the public's. In the end, the four songs were ranked in the top 30, and the sales were not bad. They couldn't reproduce the legend of Yang Yi's previous songs being popular. However, Yang Yi and Murphy were still very satisfied with this result. We are not R&B. How can we get everyone's love? As long as there are people who like our music, and so many people think that our four songs are good, that's enough. Murphy comforted Mo Xiaowan. Mo Xiaowan was disappointed with this result for a long time, because this small album was Murphy's first battle after independence. It didn't become a hit, and it always gave people the feeling that Murphy had made a bad move. There were indeed some media outlets who wanted to see the world in chaos mocking Murphy's departure from Tianmei. They even used this as a pretext to make a fuss. Didn't she not accept media interviews? Didn't she like to keep a low profile? As a star, she didn't want any exposure, and she still wanted results? Of course, they couldn't ridicule her so directly. Not only did they beat around the bush, but they also gave many examples to comment on, but the meaning was expressed. But so what? It was unknown whether Yang Yi and Murphy regretted changing, or still doing their own way in the entertainment industry. Of course, these were things that happen later. Ever since the release of the song, there had been constant turmoil outside. But in their villa, it was still calm and peaceful. They were still happily living their lives. Yang Yi and Murphy did not bring the outside influence into the house. Early in the morning, Yang Yi smiled and said to Shishi, who was at home during the summer vacation, "Daddy will teach you how to swim today." Summer came later this year. After the summer heat, the sun seemed to have woken up. High in the sky, it shone brightly on the earth and gradually began to emit its majesty. After the temperature rose, not to mention putting on a jacket for Shishi, even if the little girl wore a vest and swung outside, she would be sweating profusely when she came back. In such hot weather, Yang Yi finally remembered that they had a swimming pool at home. After asking the property management staff to come over and clean the pool, Yang Yi filled the pool with water since he had nothing to do today. He was ready to enjoy the convenience of a private pool with his family. Swim. Swim. I'm going to swim. Hearing her father's words, Shishi could not hold back her joy. She ran around the house happily and giggled incessantly. Steamed bun, who did not know the truth, also followed behind the little master. His tongue was hanging out, and he jumped around happily. After a while Shishi, wearing a one-piece swimsuit for children, happily appeared by the pool. Cece's swimsuit was a little conservative. It was like a small skirt, but it was very slim fit, showing off the little girl's slender arms and legs. Her belly was round and bulging like the other children's. It was very cute. She ran so fast that Murphy couldn't stop her. As she ran, she giggled and said, "Mama, Papa, come quickly. You can't go into the water directly. You have to wait for Daddy to teach you." Murphy's belly was a little bigger. She was also wearing a swimsuit, and it could be seen that her body had become a lot fuller. For this reason, she felt embarrassed. If it were not for the fact that there were no outsiders in their private pool, she would not have come out to swim. After all, women love to be beautiful. Who would want to be seen by others when she was a little fat now? However, Murphy could not take care of Shishi. She just splashed water on the side. After slowly adapting to the water temperature, she went into the pool and swam slowly by herself. Pregnant women could still swim, as long as they paid attention to some small problems. Moreover, swimming was good for the body and the future delivery. Yang Yi, who turned off the water, appeared by the pool after a while. He was wearing loose swimming trunks, but his figure was undeniably good. From the back, he had a strong back and a bare waist, and his shoulders were wide and round. From the front, his thick chest and strong abdominal muscles were even more amazing. "Come, Shishi. First do some stretching with Daddy to warm up. When you swim later, you won't get cramps easily." When Yang Yi saw the little girl's impatient look, he knew that she wanted to get into the water quickly, but he still insisted. Okay then. Shishi was a little disappointed, but she was still full of expectations and warmed up with her father. Fortunately, when she learned the sword dance, Yang Yi had already taught Shishi how to warm up. After a while, after warming up, Yang Yi took Shishi slowly into the water. There was no swimming ring. This was Shishi's first time swimming in the water, but Yang Yi just wanted his daughter to get rid of the dependence of the swimming ring and learn how to swim quickly. Yang Yi went into the water first, then took Shishi's hand and let her go down the stairs step by step. This private swimming pool was full of water and had a depth of 1.4 meters, which was only up to the chest of ordinary adults, not to mention Yang Yi and Murphy, who were not ordinary people. Yang Yi was not satisfied in such a pool, but this level was still very dangerous, because it was enough to reach Shishi's little head. It was time to go into the water. At first, Shishi was full of interest, and her face was full of excitement, but as the stairs slowly went down, the water gradually reached her chest, and the little girl's smile disappeared. "Papa, I'm scared." Shishi went down another step, and suddenly found that the water had reached her neck. She hurriedly took a step back and looked at her father in panic. She was very happy to play in the water, but the little girl never thought that the water would be so deep. Although she didn't know what the consequences would be, the natural fear in her heart had already spread. "Don't be afraid. When you are about to choke, Daddy will pick you up. Why don't you try and see if you can float by kicking the water?" Yang Yi advised. I don't want to." Shishi withdrew her hand and gently shook it in front of her chest. She was in a dilemma. She was reluctant to leave the swimming pool. Yang Yi frowned. It didn't seem to work. Next to them, Murphy, who was slowly backstroke, looked up at Yang Yi and said with a smile, "You have to let Shishi get used to the water slowly. I told you to buy a swimming ring for her, but you didn't believe me." She didn't need a swimming ring. Her father was her daughter's biggest guarantee. Yang Yi walked over, bent down, and said with a smile, "How about this? Daddy will carry you into the water, and then keep supporting you. You won't drink any water, okay?" Yang Yi was unconsciously infected by Shishi's bad habit of abusing the word then. Shishi hesitated for a moment, but her desire to play in the water overcame her fear. She stretched out her small arms, tightly hugged her father's neck, and let him carry her into the water. Yang Yi half sat and half swam, soaking in the water with Shishi. The little girl kicked her little feet randomly, but she couldn't reach the bottom. Sometimes she kicked her father's waist. "Papa, Papa, don't let go. I'm scared." Shishi's feet were not on the ground, so she felt very insecure. She tightly hugged her father's neck and said nervously, Chapter 544. Young-yi suddenly had an idea. He stretched out one leg and bent it, so that Shishi could stand on it. Then he coaxed, "Alright, relax. You can't hold on to Daddy's neck when you swim. Anyway, Daddy will hug you and won't let you fall into the water." Shishi was skeptical. She hesitantly let go of one hand, but her other hand was still on her father's neck. Her small body trembled in the water, as if she would slip if she stepped on her father's thigh. Young-yi's two big hands almost wrapped around the little girl's small waist. Although it was an exaggeration, this supporting force made Shishi's body as steady as a rock in the water. She wouldn't slip as she thought. The slightly surging water caused by Murphy's swimming was like a huge wave in Shishi's eyes. It didn't send her flying. The little girl felt a little relieved. Although she was nervous, she couldn't help but use her small hand to pat the water. "Papa!" The water splashed, and some even flew onto Shishi's face. Hee. The little girl couldn't help but turn to look at her father. Although she was so nervous that she frowned a little, her big eyes were full of smiles. She seemed to be having a lot of fun. This was much more fun than the little water in the bathtub. After all, a swimming pool was a swimming pool. Shishi, look at Mommy. Murphy was a good swimmer. She was breaststroke just now, but now that she turned over, it became backstroke. She floated on the water leisurely, and could even turn her head slightly to greet Shishi. Mom is so amazing. Shishi stood on her father's lap and looked at her mother enviously. It wasn't that she appreciated how good Murphy was at swimming. The little girl was just envious that Murphy could play so freely in the water, unlike her, who could only gently pat the water and didn't dare to make waves. It was as if she was afraid that she would be swallowed by the water if she moved too much. "You can do it too. Come on." Young-yi saw that Shishi was getting used to it, so he didn't dawdle. He hugged her waist with one hand and held her small head with the other. He held her horizontally, so that her head was slightly above the water, while the rest of her body was immersed in the water. It was simple and rough. As Young-yi expected, she was so scared that she closed her eyes and cried. Her small hands and feet flopped in the water. She was too scared. At that moment, she thought that her father would leave her in the water, would abandon her. She didn't care that her head was still above the water. She closed her eyes and cried. It was also due to her survival instincts. The little girl flapped her arms and legs very hard, sometimes splashing the water with her small hands and feet. Fortunately, she's head she wouldn't fall. Seeing Young-yi teaching Cece like this, Mo-fei stood up nervously in the water. "It's okay. Don't worry." Young-yi smiled and shook his head at Murphy. Then he didn't do anything else. He just gently coaxed Shishi. "Why are you crying? Isn't Daddy still here? Look, Daddy is still protecting you." When Young-yi learned how to swim in his previous life, there was no one to teach him. In order to survive, he, who was only a few years older than Shishi, gritted his teeth and jumped into the Amazon River. He struggled in the rapids and eventually survived and learned how to swim. Compared to that time, Young-yi was very gentle when he taught Shishi how to swim. From the beginning to the end, he didn't blame her and even coaxed her slowly. He even supported Shishi's body so that she could learn how to swim in a safe state. However, Young-yi still overestimated his daughter. Shishi was a little girl. She wasn't a thick-skinned little man. This scare made Shishi cry uncontrollably. It was as if the grievances in her heart were about to get stuck in her throat. How could Daddy not want Shishi? After letting Shishi struggle for a while, Young-yi realized that his daughter's crying couldn't be coaxed. He was also worried that the little girl would get cramps. He had no choice but to straighten her up, drag her little butt, and hold her in his arms. In Daddy's arms, she finally felt a sense of security. At this moment, the little girl was like a frightened kitten. She curled up in her father's chest and sobbed softly. One of her little hands was still holding on to her father's arm. Okay. Why are you so scared? Daddy told you that Daddy will protect you. You don't have to worry. You just have to swim like Mommy." Young-yi coaxed her helplessly. He gently pulled down Shishi's little hand that was rubbing her eyes. "Don't rub your eyes. Your hands are dirty now. Rubbing your eyes will rub the germs in. Daddy doesn't want Shishi anymore." The little girl finally opened her golden mouth. She choked with sobs and said sadly, "Why don't you want Shishi? Daddy has always been protecting you." Don't you feel it? Daddy is also holding your little head. I won't let you choke on the water. Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It did take a little effort to coax Shishi. But fortunately, after the little girl was coaxed, her good ability to accept things was also reflected. Just now, there was indeed no danger, so they didn't dawdle from the beginning. Under Daddy's coaxing, the little girl finally tried to float on the water with Daddy's support. After Shishi adapted to this feeling, she played happily. Now this posture of splashing water was much more interesting than the previous one. Moreover, Shishi was still using her hands and feet. Her little feet also made a big splash. The little girl tried hard to raise her little head, but she couldn't help but let out a pleasant laughter. That's right? Daddy didn't lie to you. Daddy is protecting you. How could I let you be eaten by the water? Yang said with a smile. The saying of being eaten by the water was created by Shishi herself. Although at this time, Shishi didn't have time to respond, Yang believed that his daughter, who was screaming in fear just now, should have confidence in him. Now he wanted to let Shishi feel the feeling of being in the water. When the little girl was a little tired and didn't want to move, Yang took her to the beach chair by the pool and sat down. Murphy, who was tired from swimming just now, went ashore to drink water, came over with Shishi's bath towel, and covered the little girl's wet body. Although the weather was very hot, it was easier to catch a cold when wet. A child's resistance was not as good as an adult's. Is it fun? Murphy scratched Shishi's little nose and asked softly with a smile. It's fun. I like to swim. Shishi's little face was very excited. She couldn't help but gesticulate with her mother and said, I can draw water. I can draw water very high. This is not called swimming. This is called playing with water. Murphy couldn't help but laugh and said, when you swim, you should be like your mother. You don't need your father to carry you. Look at your father, he can swim so well. After settling Shishi down, Yang also dived into the pool and swam back and forth a few times to satisfy his craving. Shishi looked at her father with her big eyes. His figure in the water was like an arrow leaving the bow. His posture was not standard compared to Murphy's, but every time he swung his legs and arms, it was full of strength and beauty. Papa is so powerful. The little girl looked at him with admiration and muttered to herself. Yang didn't forget that he was not playing with water today. He was responsible for teaching Shishi how to swim. Therefore, after swimming for a while, he came out of the pool and walked in front of Shishi. Papa, I want to be like you. I want to swim super fast, go there, and then go swim back. The little girl didn't seem to be tired anymore. She was full of energy as she jumped around in front of her father and chattered. Okay, then Daddy will teach you how to swim now. But first, you have to learn the swimming posture and learn the freestyle. After you learn it, you can swim as fast as Daddy. Yang said with a gratified smile. Of course, swimming is not something that can be learned overnight, but this summer is still long. Chapter 545. The movie The Fugitive finally started shooting. Today, most of the crew arrived at a private clinic in Tingshan district. Although it was the first day of shooting, the progress of the shooting wouldn't start with the prison scene. After all, there were children in this movie, so the priority should be to finish the children's scenes first, so that it wouldn't be difficult to arrange later. Shishi also came to the set with her father. Many of the people shooting the movie were familiar faces, such as Wang Chao, who was in charge of the camera, and Zhu Liang, who was in charge of the lighting. They were all part of Du Yuanlei's team. After many years of cooperation, they were very familiar with each other. Wang Chao and Zhu Liang's skills were also trustworthy. Long Yanai, the makeup artist from the fairy tale crew, was demoted this time. She was the assistant of the newly hired makeup artist, Xiao Ran. The makeup for this scene was more complicated. For example, Guozi needed to be made to look older. Long Yanai couldn't do such a complicated makeup technique, so Long Yanai had to learn from Xiao Ran. In the past, Shishi often went to the set of Fairy Tale with her father. These familiar faces made Shishi feel familiar with the environment. On the contrary, today, because Mo Fei wanted to see her daughter act for the first time, Cici was very lively with her parents around. Sometimes, she would hold her father's hand curiously, and ask him to take her to see the structure of the clinic. Sometimes, she would even take the initiative to run to Geng Xia and look at him curiously. Today, the little girl was dressed very seriously. Because they were going to shoot the movie, Yang Yi and Murphy had already changed Xixi into a costume at home. In fact, it was a primary school uniform that Yang Yi had asked someone to tailor for Xixi. It was a white-collared shirt, a blue cashmere button-up jacket, and a long blue school uniform skirt that hung down to her feet. She had only put on her coat when she entered the private clinic with an air-conditioned environment. However, on the whole, the little girl's cuteness had a scholarly air to it. She was charming and made people feel pity for her. The little girl's shiny black hair was straightened by Murphy, like a waterfall hanging down her back. Under the light, it reflected a beautiful and smooth color. The bangs on her forehead had also been trimmed neatly. At first glance, the little girl had a strict temperament that did not match her age. Of course, it couldn't be seen now. Xixi was blinking her big eyes with a smile on her face. She was moving around like a lively and cute little elf. If Du Yuanlei hadn't arranged for Xixi to audition, and the little girl in the audition had shown Wang Mai's fear, apathy, and pitifulness, Yang Yi would have found it hard to believe that Xixi could play the role well. "Hello, little girl." "Hello." Geng Xia was a little restless. He scratched his head and greeted Xixi with a silly smile. "You're Yang Yi's son, right?" In his nervousness, he even made a slip of the tongue. "Hee, I'm not a son. I'm a girl. I'm my papa's daughter. My papa is Yang Yi." When Xixi heard the problem, she couldn't help giggling. The strange feeling between her and this little uncle suddenly disappeared a lot. Yes, you're your father's daughter," Geng Xia said with self-blame. "Look at me. I'm so nervous that I'm not right." Xixi didn't answer him this time. Instead, she was thinking about her previous question. She looked at Geng Xia curiously and said, "Uncle, are you going to play my papa in the movie? My papa is my real papa, and then my papa said that you have to pretend to be my papa, but only in the movie." 2 days ago, when Yang Yi told Xixi the story of the role she was going to play, the little girl was still struggling for a long time. It was also when Yang Yi explained clearly that Wang Mai in the movie was not the real her, and that Wang Mai's father in the movie was not her father, that Xixi understood and accepted this arrangement. Therefore, when Xixi was talking to Geng Xia today, she went through a lot of trouble and said a lot of things. It was rare that the little girl didn't mess up such a talkative thing. In her heart, it was obvious that she was very clear about these relationships. But this tongue twister of, "My papa is not my papa," made Geng Xia dizzy. He scratched his ears and cheeks in confusion and said awkwardly, "I'm sorry, little girl. Can you say it again?" Yang Yi came over, patted Xixi's little head and said to Geng Xia with a smile, "It's okay. She said that you're just the father of her character in the movie." "He's not my papa." Xixi nodded and added, as if she hadn't had enough, Yes, of course I'm not your father. Your father is Brother Yang." Geng Xia smiled. The first scene was when Wang Li came in through the door with Wang Mai and met the veterinarian Grandpa Hao Shi, who had just woken up and came downstairs. The main dialogue was done by Geng Xia, who played Wang Li, and the old professor of Jiangchuan Film Academy, who played Hao Shi. Xixi, who played Wang Mai, didn't have any lines. However, this role was indeed like that. In this movie, Wang Mai basically didn't need to speak. She only needed to act with her eyes and actions. Although Xixi had a good memory, she didn't need to memorize lines, which was also a kind of liberation for the little girl's ability. "Okay, everyone, take your places." Du Yuanlei held a loudspeaker in her hand and shouted. When the shooting was about to start, Yang Yi squatted down and tidied up Xixi's clothes for the last time. Murphy was also on the side, stroking her big belly, and anxiously cheering for Xixi. "Xixi, don't be nervous. You can do it. Mom believes in you. There's no need to be nervous. Just act like you did in the audition. Dad thinks you're very good." Yang Yi also gently put his hand on Xixi's little shoulder and said softly. The little girl blinked her big eyes. It was unknown whether it was because she had grown up a little or some other reason, but she didn't act like last year. Her little face was tight, but she stuck out her little tongue, a little mischievous giggle, and said, "I'm not nervous." However, it was impossible for her not to be nervous at all. When Geng Sha came over and brought Shishi to the door to prepare for the shoot, Shishi, who didn't see her parents, finally realized that she was going to shoot a scene and had to face those big cameras. The little girl gently clenched her little fists, and a nervous expression began to show on her little face. It's okay. The director said just now, you just need to follow me and walk in with your back facing the camera. You just need to look at Teacher Xiang. Geng Sha was very attentive in preparing for his scenes. Hence, although he was also a little nervous, he had memorized the lines by heart. Moreover, as he had filmed many scenes before, he could be considered to have some experience. When he saw Shishi lowering her little head slightly, he knew that she was the same as when he first started filming, so he kindly comforted her. Shishi raised her head and blinked her big eyes. Although children were not well versed in worldly affairs, their pure hearts were like a mirror that could clearly reflect other people's attitude toward them. Cici could feel that this short uncle was helping her out of the goodness of his heart. The little girl's voice was soft as she responded. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just follow my footsteps and stay behind me. Uncle will help you. Geng Sha seemed to have also felt Shishi's trust, and he instantly felt a sense of responsibility. All right, let's start. The director's voice was heard. Let's go, Geng Sha said in a low voice. He held the teddy bear under his arm and carried a black luggage bag as he pushed the door open and walked in. Shishi hurriedly followed in small steps. It was her first time shooting such an important scene. How would Shishi's performance be? Chapter 546. When she came in, Shishi couldn't help but look in the direction of her parents. Yang Yi and Murphy were sitting on the chairs. In fact, they were more nervous than Shishi, as if this performance was a big test. But when they saw Shishi looking over, they both smiled and gave Shishi a thumbs up to encourage her. However, the little girl couldn't take it when she looked. The director called for a stop. The reason was obvious. Just a single glance would reveal a flaw. There was nothing there. Even the introverted and autistic shouldn't be looking around like that. Moreover, Shishi's face was also in the camera. When she saw her parents, her subconscious expression of joy was also wrong. Du Yuanlei didn't blame Shishi. She was worried that the child's ability to accept the performance was weak. She walked over and praised and comforted Shishi for a while. It's okay. Your performance was very good. It's just that in this scene, everyone had a little flaw. Not only you, but Uncle Geng Sha and Grandpa Xiang also didn't act very well. Let's work together and act it well, okay? Shishi didn't have a glass heart. At first, the little girl felt that it was her own problem and blamed herself. Now that the responsibility was shared and the atmosphere of teamwork was created, she was also full of responsibility and nodded her head. As for the specific problems, Shishi understood from the director's patient explanation. In the end, Yang Yi chimed in and concluded, there are only 2 points. When you enter the door later, don't look at your parents. Anyway, your parents are here to watch your performance. I believe that you will definitely perform well. The second point is that you have to play Xiaomai. She won't speak or smile. Shishi, you know how to play the role of Xiaomai. In fact, this scene didn't require much expression control, because Shishi's back was facing the camera. But Yang Yi still hoped that Shishi could have a little professionalism, so he had more requirements. I know, Shishi said eagerly. I'm going to act with Uncle Geng Sha. Papa Mom bye. Wow, so enthusiastic? After Shishi left, Yang Yi and Murphy looked at each other in surprise. They didn't know that Shishi was bursting with a sense of responsibility. She mustered all her strength and wanted to act well in this scene. She wanted to work hard together with Uncle Geng Sha and Grandpa Xiang. There were no more problems with this shot. Shishi followed Geng Sha into the room and stood where she was supposed to stand. She didn't turn her head to look around and just looked at Grandpa Xiang with her big, worried eyes. She stood there like an obedient girl. Pass. After Geng Sha and Xiang Jianglei finished their simple conversation, Du Yuanlei nodded in satisfaction. Next shot. While Wang Chao and the others were changing positions with the camera, Du Yuanlei took the time to give Shishi a thumbs up, praising her good performance just now. For children, the director was like a teacher. Their praise was like receiving a little red flower. After Shishi saw Sister Du's thumbs up, her little face suddenly bloomed with a bright smile, and her heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. Next was the conversation between Geng Sha and Xiang Jianglei. Shishi didn't need to appear in this scene, so Shishi could go back to her parents' side to rest. Very good shot. Yang Yi patted the head of the little girl who threw herself into his arms and laughed. He said with a smile, "Dad can't believe that you actually finished shooting this scene so quickly. You only had one NG." "What do you mean by NG?" Shishi blinked her big eyes and asked curiously. "It means that you only need to reshoot it once. Do you know that your Uncle Guazi sometimes NGs a few times when he's filming? Even more than 10 times. Yang Yi explained to Shishi. "Then am I very powerful?" The little girl's eyebrows were curved as she smiled. Her sparkling eyes were as beautiful as little stars, but she was a little embarrassed as she asked in a low voice. "I'm very good," Yang Yi praised. "But you have to keep it up, you can't be arrogant," Murphy reminded her. The one who acted better was Geng Sha. In fact, the Wang Li played by Geng Sha was quite different from the Pali played by Martin Schott in Yang Yi's memory. However, his simple and honest face, as well as his somewhat reserved, embarrassed, and self-abased smile, could better reflect the character's situation. It could be said that Geng Sha was almost acting as himself. The scene between Geng Sha and the veteran teacher Xiang was also very enjoyable for the onlookers. One played the role of Wang Li who was in dire straits, and the other played the role of the old veterinarian who suffered from paranoia, making people forget what he looked like in the past. Under their lead, Shishi's subsequent scenes were also more successful. Xiang Jianglei smiled kindly and bent down. As if he was playing with a cat, he stretched out his hand, bent his fingers, and gently scratched Shishi's delicate little face. The little girl's little mouth was closed, and she looked at Grandpa Xiang with her big sad eyes. However, her expression remained indifferent from the beginning to the end, and there was no change. In fact, she laughed twice. Shishi couldn't hold it in. She was amused by Grandpa Xiang's doting expression and his action of playing with a cat. However, the little girl thought that she couldn't reshoot the movie too many times, so she seriously endured it. On the third take, she perfectly portrayed the indifference of Little Wheat. This scene was beyond my expectations. I thought that Shishi would have to NG more than 10 times before she could pass. I didn't expect Shishi to be so good. Really, she's better than I thought. Shishi also received the excited praise from Teacher Du, which made her feel so happy that she was about to fly. I still want to act in the movie. Shishi was bouncing around beside her mother, and she was overjoyed. It's still a while before it's your turn. Now it's your father and Uncle Geng Sha's scene. Murphy brought Shishi to another position and found a good angle to watch Yang Yi's performance. Papa is also super good at acting in movies. Because the shooting was about to start, Shishi finally quieted down. She sat next to her mother, leaned on her mother's arm, and whispered. In fact, Shishi didn't know so much. She was simply full of confidence in her father. Yang Yi didn't know that his daughter had high hopes for him. Although he often fantasized about being the lead actor and playing the role he liked in the movie, this was really pushing a duck onto a perch. He was lying on a simple hospital bed, a table, with a straight face and closed eyes, just like Lucas in the movie in his previous life, with a ferocious look on his face. After all, with the golden finger, Yang Yi had watched the original movie, and his memory could be read like a hard drive, so he could completely remember the character's every move on camera, and remember the character's expression every minute and every second. In addition, coldness was his nature, and he didn't need to act at all. With a straight face, his strong lines gave people a fierce feeling. Fortunately, in real life, Yang Yi had become much gentler. He was usually smiling, which was why so many children liked him, and why Shishi stuck to him all the time. However, although Yang Yi acted quite well on the hospital bed, in fact, he was still very nervous. Not only did Yang Yi not know how he acted, but he was also secretly worried that if he NG'd too many times and was defeated by his daughter, wouldn't it be a little too embarrassing? Stop. Du Yuanlei suddenly shouted, Stop. Yang Yi opened his mouth, turned his head, and looked at Du Yuanlei embarrassedly. However, Yang Yi was too worried. Du Yuanlei didn't walk towards him, but towards Geng Sha. She said, Geng Sha, Your movements here are not right. You should put down the bag and the bear. I'm sorry, director, I forgot. Gung Sha also remembered. He quickly nodded and said, Okay, everyone get ready. Du Yuanlei took the loudspeaker and prepared to go back. Ah. Director Du, what about me? Yang Yi asked. Ah. Du Yuanlei was also a little confused. She looked at Yang Yi. You acted quite well. Your expression is on point. Just act like you did just now. Du Yuanlei was right. Yang Yi imitated the original character very well. He expressed Ludi's dissatisfaction, disdain, helplessness and speechlessness towards Wang Li. Oh. Yang Yi secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that it was his fault that caused the NGs. However, he still had to work hard. He couldn't lose to his daughter. Just as the filming was in full swing, Guizi, who had finished watching the opening of the movie, returned to school. He didn't have any scenes today. He was supposed to help on the set, but he made an appointment with Ding Xiang. Since the school was on holiday and there weren't many customers in the coffee shop, and Yang Huan hadn't returned from her hometown yet, he would take her to an empty place in the back of the mountain to teach her how to drive. However, when Guizi arrived at the coffee shop and saw the scene in front of him, he was furious. Chapter 547. After Tang Kaitai was rejected by Yang Yi and left angrily, he didn't give up. He didn't know that Yang Yi was helping Thousand Miles Kawanshu with his lawsuit. He didn't know that Yang Yi was very clear about his character and some of his actions in the entertainment industry. The information collected by Hua Yang's lawyer was all about it. He only thought that Yang Yi had a problem with him because of Du Yuanlei. After all, Tang Kaitai only knew that Du Yuanlei's Love Alley was later adapted into Fairy Tale. The screenwriter of Fairy Tale was Yang Yi. So the only connection between him and Yang Yi was that he once quit acting in Love Alley. It must be this woman who sowed discord in front of Yang Yi. Tang Kaitai hated Du Yuanlei so much that he gnashed his teeth. However, if this was the case, Tang Kaitai felt that he still had a chance to fix Yang Yi's opinion of him. After all, in his opinion, the fat guy who chased after Du Yuanlei still acted as the protagonist of Fairy Tale. So Du Yuanlei and Yang Yi should have nothing to do with each other. When Mr. Tang finished his business and returned to Jiangcheng, he restarted his plan to get close to Yang Yi and ask Yang Yi to write songs for him. However, this time, Tang Kaitai didn't go to Yang Yi directly. Instead, he found an opportunity when Yang Yi wasn't around, and went to the corner coffee shop. Welcome. Ding Xiang, who was reading, heard the bell and quickly raised her head to greet him enthusiastically. However, she frowned before she could finish her sentence. Hello, beautiful. Tang Kaitai smiled brightly. With his fair skin, he was indeed handsome. Why are you here again? Ding Xiang didn't have a good impression of him. However, there were other customers in the coffee shop, so she couldn't be too mean to him. She could only frown and whisper. Our boss said that he won't work with you anymore. I'm not here to see him. Tang Kaitai sat on the high stool in front of the bar counter, seemingly inadvertently put a car key with a trident on the table, and then said to Ding Xiang with a smile, I'm here for you. Tang Kaitai didn't know Ding Xiang. He didn't know that in terms of age, Ding Xiang was his senior sister. Tang Kaitai thought that Ding Xiang was just an ordinary working girl, so he deliberately showed that he was rich in front of Ding Xiang. He wanted to get in touch with Ding Xiang and have Ding Xiang put in a good word for him, so that he could find an opportunity to rope in Yang Yi again. He didn't believe that with his father's position, there would be any celebrity who wouldn't want to curry favor with him. However, Tang Kaitai's little tricks had no effect on Ding Xiang. First of all, Ding Xiang had no idea what those things were. Car keys? The key to a luxury car was completely different from the key to a car at the level of Tyrant. Moreover, Ding Xiang did not recognize the logo of the car. How could she have the thought of staring at the cars on the street or reading car magazines all day long? So when she glanced at it, Ding Xiang thought it was just a pendant. Secondly, Ding Xiang knew that Tang Kaitai wasn't a good person. Ding Xiang was very clear about what he had done to Lu Xiaoshu and the others. Ding Xiang's frown deepened. However, she was still a waitress, and he was a guest. She didn't want to use a harsh tone, so she could only speak with a sense of distance and said, "If you want to drink coffee, please order." The car keys trick didn't work? However, Tang Kai-tai didn't take it to heart. Instead, he changed his strategy. He leaned on the bar counter and looked at Ding Xiang affectionately. He said gently, "I'm not here for coffee. I'm here to look for you. I want to take a picture with you." It had to be said that Tang Kai-tai was indeed good-looking. He was one of the more popular young men in the entertainment industry. Moreover, he was very good at dressing up and looked like a very gentlemanly Korean oppa. However, Ding Xiang still didn't put on a fake expression. She rejected him directly. "No, why? Why must I take a picture with you just because you want to take a picture with me?" Ding Xiang felt that this kind of aggressive way of picking up girls was very annoying. However, Tang Kai-tai didn't see the disgust in Ding Xiang's eyes. He thought that Ding Xiang was asking why he suddenly wanted to take a picture with her. "I've been waiting for this sentence." Tang Kai-tai was pleased with himself, but he still said to Ding Xiang affectionately, "Because after taking a picture with you, I can prove to my friends that there are indeed angels in this world." He had used this trick on some beautiful girls in bars before. It worked every time, and he easily got their phone numbers. However, Tang Kai-tai didn't know that Ding Xiang wasn't an ordinary girl. Not only was she indifferent to Tang Kai-tai's provocative words, she even took 2 steps back and exposed him. "I don't know what angels look like, but I know that they're definitely not like me. Their skin is so dark, and they're so ugly." "No, they're not. I think your skin color is very healthy, and in my eyes, you're very beautiful. No one can compare to your looks." Tang Kai-tai even pretended to be emotional. "Who said that angels must be white? There can also be angels among us yellow people. An angel as beautiful as you." This conversation not only happened to be heard by Guizi, who was walking to the door, but it also attracted the attention of the other customers in the shop. However, they thought that it was just the shop's pretty waitress who was being hit on, so they secretly laughed in their seats. There weren't many people who were as straightforward as Tang Kai-tai, but who asked Tang Kai-tai to be so handsome? He was dressed like a celebrity. If he hit on the other female customers in the shop, he might succeed. "Don't shout, okay?" Ding Xiang was a little anxious. She said, "We still have to open for business. Please don't affect others. Anyway, it's just a job, and the boss isn't here. Why don't you come with me? I'll take you to eat Western food and buy clothes. Angels also need to dress up, and this uniform of yours is too much for your figure." Tang Kai-tai even tried to stretch his hand out to hold Ding Xiang's hand as he spoke. "Hey, why are you so unreasonable? Are you trying to be a hooligan?" Ding Xiang couldn't bear it anymore. She wanted to pick up the book in the bar and throw it at Tang Kai-tai's head. However, she was still a little worried. She was worried that it wouldn't be good if she made a big fuss with Tang Kai-tai. After all, she also knew the identity of Tang Kai-tai's father. She wasn't sure if it would affect Brother Yang. However, when Ding Xiang was still weighing the pros and cons, an angry shout came from behind Tang Kai-tai. "Let go of Sister Ding Xiang." Ding Xiang was stunned. She raised her head and saw Guizi rushing out in a flustered and exasperated manner. Tang Kai-tai also turned his head, but all he saw was a fist the size of a sandbag. Being fat also had its benefits. Guizi didn't have any skills, but his punch landed solidly on Tang Kai-tai's eye. Tang Kai-tai directly rolled off the high stool and onto the floor. However, it wasn't a big deal. It was just that there might be a black eye tomorrow. Tang Kai-tai covered his eye and awkwardly got up. He glared at Guizi with his remaining eye and scolded in a flustered and exasperated manner. "Damn fatty, you dare to hit me?" Guizi usually didn't get angry with others, let alone hit people. He didn't know why he was suddenly so angry. When he saw Tang Kai-tai flirting with Ding Xiang and his hand grabbing Ding Xiang's wrist, his head suddenly exploded. He pushed open the door and rushed over. After he finished hitting Tang Kai-tai, his hand was still trembling. He didn't know if it was because he was nervous or because he was in pain. "So what if I hit you?" Guizi gritted his teeth and said. "You. Who told you to touch Sister Ding Xiang?" Guizi shouted. "What about you? I hit you. I just wanted to say a few words to this waiter." Tang Kai-tai clenched his fists, but he didn't dare to fight with Guizi. Guizi's size was obvious. After all, he was still young. When he was growing up, Guizi grew a lot taller this year. He was almost 1.75 meters tall. Who doesn't know your intentions? Let me tell you, Brother Yang Yi won't write songs for you. Give up. Don't harass our sister Ding Xiang. Guizi saw that Tang Kaitai was scared. He emboldened himself. He straightened his chest and said, "Get out of here. You're not welcome here." Guizi knew that Tang Kaitai had been here before. Ding Xiang had talked to him about it. However, Guizi didn't care before, thinking that Yang Yi had already taken care of it. Tang Kaitai took a step back. He felt that he couldn't afford to lose face. He clenched his teeth and turned around to leave. Remember this. Guizi watched Tang Kaitai leave. He breathed a sigh of relief. The warrior with a straight back just now disappeared. Instead, he turned his head to look at Ding Xiang with an embarrassed face. "Are you okay?" Ding Xiang finally came back to her senses. She remembered that she saw Guizi's trembling hand. She stretched out her hand and said worriedly, "Let me see your hand." "I'm fine." Guizi quickly waved his hand. "Let me see." Ding Xiang grabbed Guizi's hand and carefully looked at it. There were no scars. Only then did she feel relieved. Her eyes were filled with gratitude, but her mouth was a little worried. "Why were you so impulsive? In fact, he can't touch me. Moreover, you know that I'm quite strong. If I wasn't worried about the bad influence, I would have kicked him out." "It's okay. That kind of person is asking for a beating. It's useless to beat him up," Guizi said with a smile. He returned to his previous appearance and bragged, "Moreover, you didn't see it. He's just a paper paste. I hit him with a punch." "You're showing off," Ding Xiang snappily said. "If his father wasn't the director of Xiangnan Television Bureau, I would have kicked him out long ago. Do you think it would be your turn? Moreover, in the future, you'll be in this line of work. If you hit him, won't your future be affected?" Ding Xiang worriedly looked at Guizi and asked. "Haha, what's so scary about a small director?" Guizi waved his hand and said with a disdainful smile, "Don't worry, Sister Ding Xiang. My family wants me to keep a low profile. I'm not like him, showing off who my father is. Humph, if we really want to compare family background, I'm not afraid of him. There's also Brother Yang." Guizi, who knew some inside information, said with a smile, "You don't have to worry about Brother Yang. He has a military background. Moreover, it's going to be exposed soon. Who dares to touch him? In any case, if you see him in a bad mood, just throw him out. I guarantee that he won't dare to make a sound." Don't be so reckless all the time." Ding Xiang was somewhat speechless. "By the way, Sister Ding Xiang, I just heard him say that you're an angel." "An angel?" Guizi thought of something and smiled at Ding Xiang. "What do you want to say?" Ding Xiang frowned and asked. "How can there be such a black angel like you? TSK, how hypocritical can he be?" Guizi joked. Chapter 548. What do you think? I was right, wasn't I? Brother Yang definitely wouldn't care about what we did, Guizi said to Ding Xiang, beaming with joy. Tang Kaitai was beaten up in Yang Yi's coffee shop. Of course, he had to inform Yang Yi about it. However, Yang Yi's reaction was very calm. He only replied that he got it. At most, he would only ask Ding Xiang and Guizi to protect themselves. Nothing else. If he beat them up, so be it. But Brother Yang didn't agree with what you did. If it were him, he would definitely think of other ways to deal with it. Ding Xiang saw that Guizi was a little complacent. She didn't want him to become a playboy, so she popped him like a balloon and said, "If Brother Yang agreed, he would have done it long ago. You wouldn't have a chance." Guizi was the weakest among them. Ding Xiang was stronger than him and Yang Yi was good at kung fu, not to mention Yang Yi. Actually, Ding Xiang had overestimated Yang Yi. Yang Yi was just shooting a movie, so he didn't have time to talk to Ding Xiang. In fact, when he heard that Tang Kaitai was beaten up by Guizi, Yang Yi applauded Guizi in his heart. Yang Yi treated Ding Xiang as his sister, just like Yang Huan. If he saw Tang Kaitai holding Ding Xiang's hand and flirting with her, he might also beat him up. After Ding Xiang finished her work at noon, Guozi took her to the back of the mountain to learn driving. The Media University of Jiangxing was leaning against a small mountain. After going around it, there was a large open space the size of a football field. It was said that it was planned to be a football field for the university town. However, after the land was leveled, the football field project was cancelled for unknown reasons. No matter what the reason was, this place was suitable for Ding Xiang to practice driving. The place was flat and there were no stones or trees in the way. She could drive straight or practice turning. Compared to the dangers on the road, this place was simply a paradise for driving practice. Guozi had already brought Ding Xiang here a few times. Shift gears and speed up. Guozi's voice could be heard in the car with the windows open. Tyrannical Wolf was a manual transmission car, and it also had an automatic transmission. However, Yang Yi liked the valiant acceleration when he switched gears, so he did not buy an automatic transmission. In fact, Ding Xiang had already mastered the basic driving skills. She didn't have to carry these things too quickly, but she drove like a snail. She switched to second gear and drove slowly. She didn't dare to drive too fast, as if she would lose control if she drove too fast. Isn't it too fast? Ding Xiang was still a little hesitant after hearing Guozi's reminder. There's still a long way to go. Furthermore, you just have to control the steering wheel and turn slowly when you're making a turn. It's fine to go a little faster. Guozi helplessly said as he pointed to the front. Oh, Ding Xiang answered hesitantly. Then she stepped on the clutch, controlled the steering wheel with her left hand, and pushed the gear forward with her right hand. However, the movement of her right hand was not standard. The lever was pushed directly to the fifth gear position. As a result, the car emitted a series of powerless noises. Moreover, the car clearly became powerless. What's going on? Ding Xiang's driving experience was not rich enough. She immediately panicked. You're in the wrong gear. Step on the clutch. Guozi shouted when he realized what had happened. Ding Xiang followed his instructions and stepped on the clutch. Then, she felt her right hand on the lever being held down by Guozi. After all, girls' hands were slender, and Ding Xiang was no exception. Guozi easily grabbed her hand along with the ball, pulled it down, and accurately shifted it back to second gear. Again, step on the accelerator, and shift gears again, Guozi said to Ding Xiang as if nothing had happened. Ding Xiang was in a daze. She sat in the driver's seat with her eyes staring ahead. However, she did not know where her mind had drifted. After a while, she finally reacted. Oh, her cheeks were slightly red. Who knew if it was because she was embarrassed by her mistake or for some other reason? She hurriedly stepped on the accelerator, released the accelerator, stepped on the clutch, and shifted to third gear. This time, Ding Xiang did the right thing. After all, she was smart. All her actions were orderly and smooth. Okay, speed up. Maintain this speed and start to turn, Guozi said. It seemed that he was not affected by her actions just now. But who knew? Guozi's heart was actually stirred up a little. Just now, because he was in a hurry, he directly grabbed Ding Xiang's hand to help her shift gears. Guozi did not react. When he reacted and withdrew his hand, the mistake was already irreversible. Guozi was a little worried that Ding Xiang would take special notice and think that he was a lecher like Tang Kaitai. Therefore, he wanted to pretend that nothing had happened. However, secretly, Guozi's mind was filled with that soft and cold touch. Okay. Ding Xiang did not say anything and just drove obediently. The atmosphere in the car was faintly awkward. On the set of the private clinic, Yang Yi and Shishi were shooting the last scene of the day. The plot was that Wang Li brought Wang Mai to meet Ludi. Because Wang Li was going to apply for a fake passport, he needed Ludi to help take care of Wang Mai. However, Ludi was very impatient at first. He was already very annoyed and did not want a little kid to bother him. However, some scenes were as classic as the first meeting between Matilda and Leon in Lyon, the Killer. Although in this movie, Wang Mai did not speak and did not have the classic dialogue of Matilda saying, "Is life always so difficult, or is it only in childhood?" The first meeting between Wang Mai and Ludi was destined to be a classic. After shooting this scene, Cece walked in with Geng Sha holding her hand. When she saw her father lying on the bed, she couldn't help but smile. causing several NGs. However, the little girl, who was full of a sense of responsibility, finally managed to adjust herself. I can't smile when I see Papa. Before they started again, she said to Gung Sha. It was not that she had to talk to Gung Sha. She just wanted to mutter her thoughts. Yes, for the time being, you can treat yourself as Xiaomai and treat me as your father. Gung Sha bent down and clenched his fist as he cheered Shi on. Action! As the director shouted, Gung Sha reached out his hand at the door and pulled Shi over. Shi's small hand was gently held in Gung Sha's big hand. Her small body still looked very lonely. The little girl's delicate face, small mouth, and big eyes revealed sadness. She just stared blankly at the Uncle Ludi, whom she met for the first time. Yang Yi's character Ludi did not make any mistakes. He controlled his expression and body very well. The impatient Ludi became hesitant. Although he was still a little impatient, he was more at a loss for what to do. It was as if his heart was being interrogated under the silent gaze of Xiaomai's clear eyes. He could scold Wang Li, who messed up his life after being released from prison, as an idiot. However, when faced with the angelic, delicate, cute and pitiful Xiaomai, all his anger disappeared. He didn't even know where to put his hands. This series of small actions was a perfect reflection of Ludi's cold exterior, but warm interior. Good shot. Du Yuanlei watched through the monitor and couldn't help but clench her fists and cheer in her heart. Next, it was mainly Shi's scene. First, when Gung Sha told Shi that he wanted Xiaomai to take care of Ludi, the little girl stared straight at the camera. She was looking at Ludi on the hospital bed. Her expression didn't change from beginning to end. However, from the way Xiaomai looked at Ludi, this scene was enough to show Xiaomai's curiosity towards Ludi. Perhaps only an innocent child would be able to see the sincerity in Ludi's heart. Then when Shi walked out, she walked slowly. Suddenly she slowly turned around, turned sideways, and turned her head. Her expression didn't change. She still looked at her father with those heart-wrenching eyes. Although this was required by the script, because Wang Li told Xiaomai that Ludi was sick and needed to be taken care of like a baby, Xiaomai seemed to pity Ludi even though she was autistic. This glance made Yang Yi very uncomfortable. It seemed like his heart had softened. After Shi walked out of the room, Du Yuanlei finally waved her hand and excitedly clenched her fists. She said, "Good pass." The others were also relieved, laughing and applauding one after another. This scene was passed in one take. Shi's performance in the camera was too good. Did you know? Sister didn't expect you to be so good. Especially at the end, your acting was so good. Sister didn't want you to stop looking at those little eyes. Du Yuanlei praised Shi. Shi didn't know if she was born like this, but she easily broke out of her acting state. The little girl was happy and embarrassed when she was praised by Teacher Du. She intertwined her little hands behind her back and stuck out her little tongue as she laughed. Uncle Gung said that I want to act as Xiaomai, so I can't treat my papa as my papa. Shi even explained to the other party. Then I can't laugh. That's right. Although you smile very cute, you're still very beautiful when you're shooting a movie. Du Yuanlei also rubbed Shi's soft hair lovingly. Shi giggled and ran back to her parents' side. Naturally, she also received praise from her parents. The little girl's performance today was outstanding. Chapter 549. 2 days later, Yang Huan returned from home and embarked on a tour of Meng village with Ding Xiang. The coffee shop at the corner of the street was officially closed and was taken over by a renovation company arranged by Yang Yi. They would renovate the coffee shop according to Yang Yi's requirements and drawings. Yang Yi, Guizi, and the rest were also filming their movie on the set. It seemed that everything was calm and peaceful. However, what was surging was an undercurrent that was hidden on the surface. After being beaten up by Guizi, Tang Kaitai of course could not take it lying down. He gritted his teeth and returned to Xiangnan. When he returned to his own territory, he began to think of ways to take revenge. However, what made Tang Kaitai depressed was that he did not know how to deal with Guizi, who had beaten him up. This guy was just a small-time celebrity. There was no news about him in the newspapers. The only news about Guizi that could be found on the internet was related to the mini-movie Fairy Tale, or the song Fairy Tale. However, Guizi was just like Yang Yi. He usually kept a low profile and did not participate in any variety shows. Therefore, Tang Kaitai could not ban Guizi from all the TV stations in Xiangnan. However, every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. Yang Yi was the one who had humiliated him in the coffee shop. Tang Kaitai felt that he should find a way to teach Yang Yi a lesson. He wanted to show Yang Yi that he was not all talk. Compared to Guizi, Yang Yi was much easier to deal with because he had a big family business. For example, Yang Yi's books were also sold in all the major bookstores in Xiangnan. Tang Kaitai used his father's name to find the relevant personnel in charge of the book publishing. He asked them to remove all of Yang Yi's books from the shelves with the reason that Yang Yi had written books that would mislead the public, such as Journey and the White Knight. This reason could not stand up to scrutiny. Moreover, this kind of top-down action was very effective. Almost overnight, all the bookstores in Xiangnan no longer had Yang Yi's books on their shelves. This news naturally reached Yang Yi's ears very quickly. Some of our close bookstore owners told us that this might be because you have offended someone. Lu Benji called Yang Yi and told him about the situation. After that, he passed the information to Yang Yi. Xiangnan. Yang Yi did not need to think to know who was behind this. Is the loss serious? Yang Yi asked calmly. It's not serious. Most of our books are sold online. Especially in Xiangnan, where the economy is developing well, 70% of our books are sold online. Only 30% are affected. However, there are some readers who come to our Sahara Mall to buy books if they can't buy them in physical stores. Lu Benji said to Yang Yi. With Tang Kaitai's background, it was impossible for him to affect online sales, or the huge copyright organization. Then this matter will be settled for now. You don't have to worry about it. Yang Yi said to Lu Benji. Yang Yi didn't take it to heart at all. He felt that online shopping would become a trend, and he could use this opportunity to see if more people would go online with the help of external forces. However, Yang Yi and Lu Benji did not expect that the ban on Yang Yi's books would be removed within a few days. Yang Yi did not even have time to think of a way to deal with Tang Kaitai, and his books were back on the shelves. After all, they were all bestsellers, and the bookstore did not want to lose customers. But Tang Kaitai gave up just like that? It was indeed so. Behind this farce, the military announced that Yang Yi was the spokesperson of the Southwest Military Region. This identity certification was directly issued from the highest level of the military, and it made many people wary. The spokesperson of the military was a special product after the development of the entertainment industry. Just like the famous celebrities in the art troupe, there were spokespeople for the military in this world. They mainly chose artists with good conduct to improve the image of the military, and to increase the enthusiasm of young people to join the military during the annual conscription. Although Yang Yi did not reveal his complete background, with a military background, it was destined that Yang Yi was not a noob author that could be easily manipulated. The leader in charge of managing the book publishing did not dare to joke about his future, and took the initiative to remove the ban on Yang Yi's books. This farce in Xiangnan came and went quickly, but in the end it calmed down. However, when Yang Yi became the spokesperson of the military region, the Southwest Military Region also introduced Yang Yi on their official website. There was nothing particularly shocking in this introduction, because the news that Yang Yi came from the special forces was hidden. They only told the public that Yang Yi was once an outstanding soldier, and when he retired, his military rank was at the rank of an officer. The media was like a cat that smelled blood, and they all reported this news. However, they were more interested in Yang Yi's identity as a former soldier. This was only a one-sided statement from the studio, and now it was finally confirmed. What was even more reported were the two photos of Yang Yi that were released along with the announcement. The first photo was of Yang Yi singing in front of the soldiers of the Southwest Military Region. It was taken by the military's own publicity staff. In the photo, Yang Yi was neatly dressed in military uniform, standing upright on the stage and singing. It had to be said that Yang Yi's spirit and temperament were raised a lot when he wore the military uniform. His originally tough and cold face suddenly became extraordinarily handsome. This also made the reporters praise him endlessly, saying that Yang Yi did indeed have the characteristics of a soldier. The second photo made the reporters and fans even more crazy. It was an old photo. The photo was a little yellowed. At that time, there were no digital photos that could be stored for a long time. The photo could be traced back to many years ago. At that time, Yang Yi had yet to enter Wolf Warriors. He was just an ordinary soldier in the razor-sharp platoon, which was known as half a Special Forces unit. In the photo, Yang Yi's face was painted in camouflage. He was lying on the ground with a rifle and shooting live bullets. Although the camouflage made it impossible to see Yang Yi's skin color, one could still vaguely see that Yang Yi's face was young and inexperienced at that time. However, when Yang Yi was young, he was serious in speech and manner. His large eyes were slightly narrowed like an eagle, watching his target. His entire body exuded a fierce aura. Those who were familiar with the current Yang Yi would feel that he was a stranger. However, this was a photo from more than 10 years ago. The younger version of Yang Yi still made the fans explode on micro-broadcasting. Is he that cool? Now I know that Yang Yi is a good family man. I didn't expect him to have such a cool side to him as a former soldier. He's good at both the hall and the kitchen. Our Murphy has indeed married a good man. Looking at Yang Yi's military photo, I finally understand how soldiers' assault could make an ordinary story so moving. How could an ordinary character be written so vividly? It turns out that Yang Yi really did experience it. He really was a soldier. Looking at these photos of Yang Yi and listening to Yang Yi's military songs, I can also understand that Yang Yi's songs are not for nothing. I give a thumbs up to the dedication of a soldier. Although Yang Yi had no intention of becoming a celebrity, with the announcement of his military identity, Yang Yi received more and more attention. Just like his micro-broadcasting Shishi's Family Chef, the number of fans under his name gradually exceeded 5 million. He was almost catching up to Murphy. Chapter 550. There was an old saying, when God closes a door, he will open a window for us. When Yang Yi was still thinking about how to deal with Tang Kaitai, Lu Benji came to him again to tell him a piece of good news. But it was not good news from Xiangnan. This was a few days ago. In the afternoon, at the temporary bank set, Lu Benji happily told Yang Yi, who was sitting on a chair and waiting for his scene to start. Boss, your Prison Break has caught the attention of Wolf TV station in America. They want to talk to you about the transfer of the copyright. Wolf TV station? This was a large online TV media company. It was similar to HBO and Fengyu's previous life. Their parent company was more powerful. It was one of the top 8 film production companies, Time Corporation. Among the imported American dramas, many of them were copyrighted by Wolf. But Wolf did not have a branch in China. So why would they want it? Yang Yi asked. How did they know about my book? Don't tell me Global Pictures CEO Su is so kind to recommend it to them? Of course, that was impossible. Lu Benji laughed and told Yang Yi that Wolf TV station took the initiative to invite translators to translate the first season of Prison Break. Then they sent emails to all the major film production companies and presented the work to them. Wolf TV station was the first to take the bait. Translation? Yang Yi realized that he had forgotten about this. For some of his works, he could translate them overseas himself. Yang Yi's English proficiency was at the same level as a native speaker. A novel like Prison Break was originally a novel that he had translated and organized himself. It could be completely translated into English and sold overseas. Of course, the most important thing was still the film rights. He could let more film production companies see it. He did not need to dawdle with Global Pictures. Lu Benji had given him a good idea. Putting this aside for now, Yang Yi was more interested in Wolf TV station's intentions. Would they be like Global Pictures CEO Su Zhongwei and treat him like a fool? In fact, it was true at first. After all, it was a place where capital reigned supreme. Wolf's first email was to lower the price and take advantage of the fact that the Chinese did not understand the American television market to get the copyright of Prison Break at a cheap price. The negotiation team organized by Sahara Publishing for Yang Yi was not to be trifled with. When Wolf's people contacted them, The professional and rigorous negotiation team immediately made them stop underestimating Yang Yi. In addition, Sahara Publishing also raised the flag and told them that a pack of wolves were waiting for them, including a big company like Global Pictures, and that Wolf was not the only wolf eyeing the TV copyright of Prison Break. Wolf's men finally changed their attitude and started to discuss the price of the copyright with Sahara. Yes, in terms of negotiation, you are more professional than me. I trust you. Yang Yi nodded and said to Lu Benji, but I hope that before the results of the negotiations are out, Wolf's side will first show their sincerity. I'm not talking about money, but I want a shooting plan, who is the director, estimated investment, etc. This needs to be written in the contract. I don't want my work to be ruined by some rookie director. Lu Benji jotted down the details in his notebook and nodded. After the discussion, Lu Benji packed his things and prepared to leave. Old Lu, do you have any plans later? Yang Yi asked with a smile. Nothing much. I'm planning to return to the publishing company. Boss, do you have any orders? Lu Benji was stunned for a moment and shook his head. If you don't, then stay. In a while, everyone will celebrate my daughter's birthday. You can join in the fun too. Yang Yi said with a smile. Today was July 13th. It was Shishi's birthday again. The little girl was the same as Murphy, celebrating a new birthday. Note 1. Yang Yi didn't plan to make a big fuss today. Just like last year, he and Murphy would throw a small party for the little girl at home, and then the whole family would warmly congratulate Shishi. That would be enough. But Guazi was very considerate. He remembered Shishi's birthday from his previous conversations with Yang Yi, and even told the whole crew that the little girl was celebrating her birthday on that day. After a few days of interaction, whether it was Du Yuanlei, Geng Sha, or the rest of the crew, they all liked Shishi, who was smart and good at chatting. Just like the makeup artist Xiao Ran. When he was doing Guazi's aged makeup, Shishi ran over excitedly to observe. As she watched, she asked Xiao Ran some strange questions with admiration. Not only did Xiao Ran not feel annoyed, as a senior makeup artist, he actually found a long-lost sense of accomplishment with Shishi. The little girl's big curious eyes made Xiao Ran feel that every stroke of her eyebrows was as great as the Genesis. If it weren't for Shishi being too young, he would have taught her everything. There was also the veteran actor who played the role of a veterinarian, Professor Xiang Jianglei. The old man especially doted on this little girl. After he finished filming his scenes, he stayed and volunteered to be Shishi's acting teacher, guiding Shishi's later performances. Under his guidance, Shishi's acting became better and better, and his fluffy white hair became thinner and thinner as Shishi played with it. After the news of Shishi's birthday spread, the whole crew unanimously decided to give Shishi a big surprise. Everyone would celebrate her birthday together. This plan was decided 2 days ago, and it had been carried out secretly. Even Yang Yi and Murphy participated in keeping it a secret, so Shishi didn't know at all. However, there was a problem. Shishi didn't come today, because the scene was a bank robbery scene, and the little girl didn't have a part in it. This was the shooting plan that had been made before. The rented venue couldn't be delayed, so the shooting could only be carried out according to the plan. Of course, the problem was easy to solve. Murphy took Shishi and sat in the car driven by Lance Haokai's bodyguard, along with Miss Lan Xian, who came to join in the fun. In the afternoon, when the sun was not so hot, they came to the set to visit Yang Yi, who was filming. This excuse was good, and it completely fooled Shishi, who didn't have any doubts. Then the little girl came. Uncle Lee, I came with Mom to see my papa. My papa is shooting a movie inside. It's not Uncle Geng. Yang Yi is my real papa. And this is my good friend Xian Air. She also came to see my papa. Can you let us in? Please, don't refuse to let Xian Air in, okay? Shishi's clear and pleasant voice came from afar. After a few days of getting along, Shishi had become familiar with everyone in the crew, including the security guard who maintained the order on the set and prevented outsiders from sneaking in. Murphy also intended to train Shishi's ability to organize her words, so that she could greet the security guard Uncle Lee. Chapter 551. When Shishi's voice came in, Everyone was preparing for the little girl's surprise. However, they weren't ready yet, so they were in a mess. Fortunately, the director, who was the best at controlling the scene, was here. Du Yuanlei picked up the loudspeaker and walked to the set, which was in the middle of the temporary bank. She said to everyone, "Don't worry, I'll ask Old Li to help delay it. Is the music accompaniment ready? Okay, there's a microphone, okay. Everyone else is in costume, right?" The props team distributed the props. "Today there's a little girl. Remember the changes we made just now? Xiao Gua, Mr. Yang, and Mr. Xiaohuayan. Please give the props to the little girl named Xianair later." Under her arrangement, the set slowly became orderly. Everyone was preparing in an orderly manner. Even Wang Chao and the others had set up the camera and set up the rail car. Outside the set, Shishi was dealing with the security guard, Uncle Li. "Is she really your good friend? What's her full name?" In order to stall for time, Uncle Li tried his best to add scenes for himself. He held a small notebook and pretended to take notes. "Her name is Xianair. Her full name? Xianair's name is Lan Xian." Cici really thought that the security guard, Uncle Li, was doing his job to protect everyone, so she said honestly. Lan Xian held Shishi's hand and followed her. She also looked serious and said in a low voice, "But everyone calls me Xianair." "Yes, Xianair. But Uncle Li is asking for your name. He wants to say all your names. I think my name is Shishi, but my full name is Yang Shi." The little girl helped Uncle Li and explained to her friends. "Lan Xian? How do you write this name? Do you know how to write it?" Uncle Li continued to make things difficult for the little girl. Uncle Li, I can't write. I don't know Xianair's name." Shishi opened her mouth and quickly waved her hand. But I know how to write my name. You can't just write your name. You have no problem, but we need to confirm the identity of your good friend. We need her name." Uncle Li, the security guard, said dutifully. "Xianair, little friend, do you know how to write your name? Why was it so troublesome?" Lan Xian also said in annoyance, "I don't know how to write my name. My name is too difficult to write." The chubby girl finally realized the importance of learning how to write her own name. But I can let Mom write it. My mom will write it, right? Mom, do you know how to write Xianair's name? I want all the names." Uncle Li said to. Shishi had to turn to her mother for help. Mo Fei knew the situation inside. She had been keeping in touch with Yang Yi. At this moment, when she saw the two little girls being helpless in the face of the bad security guard, Uncle Li, she was secretly happy in her heart. Now that Shishi asked for help, Murphy quickly put away the smile on her face and said seriously, "Of course Mom will write it for you." Murphy's expression was very anxious. If it was an adult, they would definitely be suspicious if they saw her not smiling normally. But Shishi and Lan Xian, the two little girls, didn't think much about it. They looked at their mother with expectant eyes, waiting for her to write Lan Xian's name. "Okay, please wait a moment. I'm going to find someone to verify it. Once I confirm Lan Xian's identity, I'll let you go, okay?" The security guard Uncle Li was addicted to acting. He said to the two little girls seriously and gently. The security guard Uncle Li took a small book and looked at it for a while before reading Lan Xian's name. At this moment, Du Yuanlei's voice also came from inside. Just then, Shishi heard Du Yuanlei read Lan Xian. "Xianair, Uncle Li, Sister Du is talking about Xianair." Shishi excitedly said to the security guard Uncle Li. "Yes, I have reported this matter to the director, so she said that she will immediately check the identity of Lan Xian. Please wait a moment." The security guard Uncle Li lied through his teeth. He almost read Lan Xian's name one after the other with Du Yuanlei. How could he have time to report it? But the two little girls didn't find this flaw at all. They were a little regretful, but they still nodded very obediently. "Uncle Li, you have to hurry up," Shishi said a little worriedly. "You have to hurry up." Lan Xian chimed in softly. However, Lan Xian was a little absent-minded. Because it was her first time here, everything around her was very new to her, so she looked around and even tiptoed to look inside. It was as if she could tiptoe past the uncle in front of her and see the situation inside. Fortunately, The preparation work inside was completed very quickly. The security guard Uncle Lee was a little reluctant, but he still had to do his curtain call. He pretended to talk to the walkie-talkie. What? Confirmed? Yes, yes, yes. Confirmed? When Shishi heard this, her anxious big eyes suddenly lit up, and she looked at the security guard Uncle Lee happily. Hello, little friend Yangshi, little friend Lon Xian. Your identities have been confirmed and you can enter the movie shooting site. I wish you a good time. The security guard Uncle Lee made way for the door and solemnly saluted, finishing his last scene. Hee, thank you, Uncle Lee. The little girl happily pulled Lon Xian, who was still a little confused and didn't know what had happened, and happily ran into the door. Murphy and Lon Xian's bodyguard, who helped carry the milk tea and coffee for visiting, also smiled and nodded to the security guard Uncle Lee, and walked over. Of course, the bodyguard in the black suit didn't need to confirm his identity again. However, the security guard Uncle Lee was still a little unsatisfied. He looked at the back of the bodyguard and smacked his lips. It seems that acting is quite interesting. No one knew that the security guard Uncle Lee, who was just over 40 years old, had been a security guard for many years. He had never been successful, but this time, his heart, which had been silent for many years, was active. After The Fugitive finished filming, Uncle Lee, who had made up his mind to go out and make a breakthrough, quit his job as a security guard and resolutely threw himself into the Beijing film and television base, becoming a professional cameo who still had no name but enjoyed it. However, it was a pity that in his future cameo career, Uncle Lee would no longer be able to have so many lines and scenes. Shishi pulled her little friend and happily ran in to look for her father. However, as soon as she entered the set, the little girl was stunned. Had she entered a fairy tale world? Although the set was still configured like a bank, almost everyone was wearing props like a fairy tale character. For example, Uncle Gengxia was dressed like Jack in the fairy tale Jack in the Beanstalk that her father told her. A pointy hat, a farmer's waistcoat, and a pair of raised boots. Wow! Lon Xian couldn't help but cry out when she saw this scene. It's so fun. There was even a movie like this? I think it's fun too. Mom, where's Mom? Shishi looked for a while, and felt that it was a little unreal. She turned her head, but she couldn't see her mother behind her. She's here. Murphy had appeared in the middle of the set without anyone noticing. She held a microphone and said with a smile, Shishi Xiner, today is a special day. Everyone has prepared a program for you. At this moment, Du Yuanlei, who had trained her physique, performed ballet steps and vigorously walked in front of Shishi and Lon Xian. She said with a smile, Two little princesses, please allow me to show you this beautiful fairy tale town. Chapter 552. Shishi and Lon Xian were a little confused by the liveliness of the scene. Everyone was wearing costumes and dressed up as cartoon characters. Although there were no costumes on TV or in reality, everyone was dressed up with the characteristics of the characters. It was more consistent with the stories that Yang Yi told Shishi and the comics that he drew. Like a wolf head, a duck head, a tiger head, and Uncle Gengxia, they were dressed like ancient farmers. Shishi turned her head, and could see that her father had a long nose. That was Pinocchio. Shishi recognized him at a glance. The sound system on the set started to play. First, it was the sound of the clockwork. The sound was very clear, and at first it was a little confusing. This was the accompaniment that Yang Yi had prepared early. He originally planned to sing this song for Shishi on her birthday. Murphy and he had already learned this song in the studio before Shishi was on vacation. However, Yang Yi didn't think of doing so many tricks. The day before yesterday, Guizi revealed the secret of heaven, and everyone was angry. They wanted to celebrate Shishi's birthday, so he came up with this idea. After the clockwork was tightened, it was as if a music box had been activated. There was a long and mellow whistle from the sound system. Accompanied by the gentle strumming of the guitar, the music opened the prelude to this dream journey. Du Yuanlei held the small hands of Shishi, who hadn't recovered yet, and Lon Xian, who was in a daze. She smiled and jumped, leading them forward. Standing in the middle, holding the microphone, Murphy sang softly, I heard that Snow White is running away, and Little Red Riding Hood is worried about the big bad wolf. Mo Fei's singing skills had already reached the level of perfection. With a smile on her face, she hummed softly with a nasal voice. The deep love contained in the song was intoxicating. It was so beautiful. She deserved to be Murphy. The people who participated in this event couldn't help but look at Murphy in the venue. Usually she didn't show off. She sat quietly on the side and watched Shishi and Yang act. People didn't even remember that she was a big singer. Now she finally opened her mouth. Sure enough, Murphy was still Murphy. At this time the protagonist was Shishi. Shishi followed Sister Du step by step. The cartoon characters in front of her eyes were driven by the lyrics. I heard that the Mad Hatter likes Alice, and the ugly duckling will become a white swan. I heard that Peter Pan is not old, but he has a harp and magic. Shishi saw Brother Zhu Liang, who was wearing a tall hat, had a thick layer of powder on his face, and had red eyes. He was like a clown, making faces at her. At the same time, a certain actor wearing an ugly duckling mask was also doing the action of spreading his wings and flying high. Also, when the song reached the part of Jack, Gung Sha, who played Jack, reacted slowly. He panicked and took out a handful of confetti and threw it into the sky. As if he was casting magic, the confetti that filled the sky slowly floated down. It was very fun. The little girl vaguely understood what they were doing, but this interesting scene still made the little girl unable to help but grin and laugh. Of course, it wasn't that simple. I heard that there is a candy house in the forest, and Cinderella lost her beloved glass slipper. Du Yuanlei smiled sweetly and let go of the two little girls' hands. She walked in front of Shishi and took the lollipops from the hands of the people next to her. Then she turned and bent down, as if dancing. She handed the two lollipops to Shishi and Lan Xian respectively. Lan Xian took it first. When she saw the lollipop, the little fat girl suddenly smiled, and didn't care about anything else. After Shishi took the lollipop, she was surprised to see that the glass slipper that Cinderella lost actually appeared in Sister Du's hands. Although it was not a real glass slipper, it was just a plastic dancing shoe that looked like glass. The prop team was still very awesome. She didn't know where they got this pair of shoes from, but it just happened to be Shishi's size. The little girl was a little confused. She was held in Du Yuanlei's arms, and then the little shoes on her feet were taken off and put on the glass slipper in a daze. Am I going to become a princess? Shishi looked at the glass slipper on her feet. Not to mention how it felt to wear it, it looked very beautiful. It was sparkling and shiny, and it was studded with diamonds. Of course, it was also fake. The little girl suddenly felt that she was beautiful. Why did you let me wear these shoes? The little girl couldn't help but giggle and asked with a childish voice. However, Du Yuanlei smiled at her, put her finger on her mouth, and gently shook her head. It's not over yet. Little Red Riding Hood has a red robe that can suppress herself and turn into a wolf. Murphy sang until here and paused. Long and I, who played the role of Little Red Riding Hood, ran over and put the small red coat on Shishi. Suddenly, Shishi, who wore the red coat, looked like the winner of a beauty contest, charming and beautiful. While doing so, Long and I also put her Little Red Riding Hood on Lan Xian's head, who was competing with the lollipop wrapper. Xian, you turned into Little Red Riding Hood. Shishi beamed and pointed at Lan Xian. Lan Xian blinked her eyes and looked at Shishi, but she was a little distracted. Without thinking too much, Du Yuanlei took the two little girls and continued to play with the uncles and aunties who were playing the role. It has to be said that many people present were multi-talented. For example, Elder Xiang Jianglei smiled and took out a few balls to play juggling. Xiao Ran, the famous makeup artist, even did a tap dance. She did a simple tap dance and then high-fived Shishi. Hehehehe. That's amazing. The little girl was fascinated. She raised her little head, her big eyes curved, and her face was full of happy smiles. Accompanying the joy was Murphy's beautiful singing. There's always a colorful river winding in Fairy Town, tainted with the perverse aura of magic, but twisted in love. The river flows endlessly, splashes the water, and draws a curtain of time into the water. Shishi and the others might not understand the lyrics, but the others present couldn't help but be fascinated by it. Perhaps their hearts were filled with a myriad of emotions. These children were still happy with the fairy tale world that the adults created for them. Their ignorant childhood was as colorful as the lyrics said. However, time passed too quickly. Watching the little girl grow up, there was always a kind of melancholy that made people sigh with emotion. Time flowed endlessly and never returned. But it didn't matter. Soon the singing became lively again. I heard that Apollo turned into a golden crow, and there's a saber-toothed tiger running on the grassland. The actor wearing a tiger mask ran around, and Gwazi, who was dressed as a birdman, greeted them with a smile. He put a pair of prop wings on Lon Exine. All of a sudden, Lon Exine became a little angel with a little Red Riding Hood, but she might not be able to fly. I heard that Pinocchio lied. The dwarf monster has a box full of gems. Yang Yi, who was wearing a long nose, finally came over. He smiled, took out a small magic wand with red gems on it, and handed it to Shishi. Papa, your nose is like Pinocchio's. Hee Papa, you lied. After Shishi saw her father, the smile in her eyes grew. She took her father's hand, and while talking, she couldn't help but stick to her father. Inadvertently, the strong sense of attachment was reflected in her subtle movements. Although Fairy Town was very fun, the little girl was not like Alice. While she felt magical, she was somewhat flustered. She wanted to be with her father. Chapter 553. The little girl grabbed his hand. In order not to delay the upcoming performance, Yang Yi had to take over Du Yuanlei's job. He smiled as he took the princess crown from teacher Xia Huayan and put it on Shishi's head. Then, am I a princess now? Shishi reached out and touched the crown on her head. She was overjoyed as she held her father's hand and said, with her father by her side, she didn't have to be frightened by these strange performances. She could devote herself to the performance and enjoy the happiness that she deserved. At this time, her smile was the brightest. Hearing Shishi's words, Yang Yi smiled and said, of course you've become a princess. Today is your birthday, so you can become a princess. The little girl was wearing a red robe, a magic staff inlaid with rubies in her right hand, and a pair of sparkling crystal dancing shoes on her feet. She really did look like a little princess. Murphy didn't stop. She continued to sing, and Shishi followed her father and continued to tour the grand party. The little mermaid smears the sunlight into eyeshadow and throws herself into the bubble's embrace. Old Master Xiang, who had just performed, took out a new toy. Like pulling out a sword, he pulled out a bubble stick. However, this bubble stick was not the kind of big bubble sword that could be opened. It was like a small bubble toy that was usually used to blow bubbles. It was arranged side by side in circles. Grandpa Xiang waved his hand gently, and many bubbles floated in the air. Although there was no sunlight shining on them and they weren't colorful, under the refraction of the lights, they looked sparkling and beautiful. They immediately attracted the attention of Shishi and Lon Exine. It seemed that this was the first time Lon Exine had seen this kind of toy. She opened her small mouth and forgot to eat her lollipop. She looked at Grandpa Xiang in amazement as he magically created bubbles one by one. Amazing! Lon Exine said enviously. I want to play too, Grandpa Xiang, I want to play too. She couldn't hold back anymore. She stuffed the magic staff into her father's hand and ran up excitedly. She hugged her two small hands in front of her and looked at Grandpa Xiang with her big eyes expectantly. Here, take it. Of course, old Master Xiang Jianglei smiled and handed it to Shishi. He even taught her how to use it. You have to put this in the soap water here. After you pull it out, wave it in a direction, and bubbles will appear on their own. Shishi couldn't wait to wave it around. At first, only a few bubbles appeared, but after she followed Grandpa Xiang's instructions and filled it with soapy water, she waved it again. Many small bubbles floated out in front of Shishi. The little girl was wearing a pair of crystal dancing shoes and a beautiful princess crown. She spun around and around like magic. Bubbles flew out around her. It was also very beautiful. This will disappear. Lon Exine was the follower of the bubbles. She happily popped a few bubbles and found that the bubbles would break and disappear in her hands. She hurriedly shouted and told Shishi about this discovery. Really? Shishi took the small stick and chased the small bubbles that she had just made. The small bubbles didn't fly very far. Shishi caught up with a few of them. After she broke them, she also exclaimed in surprise, "It's true." In fact, the performance was almost over. The two little girls played with the bubbles and forgot about everything else. Only their laughter and Murphy's singing were left. However, Shishi didn't pay attention to what her mother was singing. The lyrics were too profound for children. However, there were a series of names in the story that her father told. It was like a background music, which was quite interesting as the background music. Listening to the song and watching everyone's performance, Shishi and Lan Xian both had a lot of fun. Finally, before the scene got out of control, Murphy's singing came to an end. Let all the things that happened a long, long time ago come to a happy ending. Everyone gathered in a circle. Du Yuanlei shouted 1, 2, 3, and then shouted to Shishi in unison. Shishi, happy birthday. I wish you happiness every day. Although it wasn't a particularly literary blessing, everyone sincerely expressed their blessings to Shishi. Shishi, who was a little carried away by playing, was hugged by her father. Yang Yi asked her to listen to everyone's blessings. You have to say thank you to everyone. Look, your uncles, aunts, and grandfathers have prepared such a good performance for your birthday, right? Yang Yi whispered in her ear. The little girl was still very well behaved. She snuggled in her father's arms and said, "Thank you." This small performance for Shishi's birthday was actually prepared in a hurry. Only Du Yuanlei made a rough plan based on Yang Yi's song. As for the other performances, such as Old Master Xiang's three-ball juggling and Xiao Ran's tap dancing, everyone improvised based on their own talents. There were still some flaws, and it was obvious that some people were dissatisfied with it. But it didn't matter. The flaws couldn't obscure the beauty. It was already very good that a small performance for Shishi's birthday that was prepared in 2 days could be done to this extent. What's more, the main character, Shishi, was enjoying it. Do you think you're having fun? Yang Yi took the microphone from Murphy and became a live reporter. He smiled and interviewed Shishi's thoughts. I'm happy, hee. Shishi was still a little shy in front of so many people. After saying that, she threw herself into her father's arms and shyly squeezed. What do you think of your uncles' and aunts' performances? Was it good? Were you surprised? Yang Yi looked at everyone and then continued to ask Shishi with a smile. It was so fun. I know a lot of them. Shishi couldn't help but tell her father about her discovery. Uncle Gungsha is Jack. He will climb Doubta's tree into the sky. It's super fun. Her performance was recognized by the audience. Everyone around Shishi looked at each other and smiled. Old Master Xiang looked at Shishi, who was working hard to explain. The more he looked at her, the more he liked her. He reached out his big hand and rubbed her little head lovingly. Shishi's birthday party passed with laughter and laughter. Lan Xian didn't go back empty-handed. She obtained the magic weapon for blowing bubbles. She hugged it as if it was a treasure, and didn't let it go even when she returned to the villa. According to Lan Longkai, Lan Xian realized that she had run out of soapy water and couldn't make any more bubbles. She even started bawling her eyes out. Fortunately, the nanny knew about this and gave her some soap water, so that she could make bubbles again. Lan Xian then smiled through her tears. Shishi also received a lot of presents. The little girl happily opened the presents and reminisced about the happiness of her birthday. She said goodbye to her 4-year-old self, and finally became a 5-year-old girl. After the celebration, the movie still had to be filmed. However, 2 days later, when they were filming the scene of the bank being surrounded, Murphy frowned and walked over with Yang Yi's phone. Murphy said, Yang Yi, you have to listen to this call. It's from Huan Huan. Something seems to have happened. Chapter 554. 2 days ago, Yang Huan, who had just returned from her hometown and started her risky graduation trip with Ding Xiang, came to the mountains of Xiangxi. To be precise, Ding Xiang's hometown was a remote mountain in Tush Village, Yinya County, Mauda City, Xiangxi Province. It was a tough trip to her home. Yang Huan and Ding Xiang first took the train to the city, then took a 5-hour bus ride to Yinya County. Because of the twists and turns on the mountain road, It was very difficult to travel on the national highway. When they arrived at Yinye County, Ding Xiang told Yang Huan that she used to walk back slowly when she was still studying. But now, there was a road that led to Tush village. Ding Xiang and Yang Huan took a three-wheeled bus, which was a large compartment connected to a motorbike, and arrived at Tush village. The passenger car was still open, and it ate dust and dirt along the way. The two girls were covered in dust and dirt. But fortunately, Yang Huan could accept it. She came from a village, and this was her normal situation. Therefore, she joked with Ding Xiang, "Sister Ding Xiang, I realize that although our hometown is also a village, there are some differences. My hometown is in the basin, but yours is in the mountains." After arriving at Tush village, Ding Xiang and Yang Huan found a small hotel to stay in because night had fallen. They rested for the night, had breakfast the next morning, bought some buns, and continued their journey. The rest of the journey was a big challenge for Yang Huan. She had to walk with Ding Xiang on the steep mountain road. They crossed 3 mountains and arrived at the foot of Ding Xiang's Miao Stockade village after noon. They still had to climb up the stone stairs that were as dangerous as a stairway to heaven. Although the scenery along the way was beautiful, and the higher they climbed, the more they could see through the gaps of the forest and see the verdant mountains in the distance. However, Yang Huan was not in the mood to look around. She only wanted to reach Ding Xiang's home as soon as possible and have a good rest. After 2 days and 1 night, Yang Huan and Ding Xiang finally arrived home when the sun was about to set, and the sun was about to set. There was nothing particularly surprising about it. It was a poor and underdeveloped village with old buildings. Other than the wooden structures, everything else was similar to the poor and shabby Wadaiku village in Yang Huan's memory when he was very young. Of course, Wadaiku village was much better now. Even without Yang Yi, the villagers lived in brick houses. With Yang Yi, they were moving toward a happy and well-off life. However, the people of Baiyao Stronghold were still very enthusiastic. When they saw Ding Xiang and Yang Huan, they all greeted them in Miao language. Some of the children in the stronghold also ran up to Yang Huan and looked at her curiously. Their bright black eyes still had the liveliness of their age. "Hello." Although Yang Huan was very tired, she still happily took out some candies from her backpack and gave them to the children. She learned it from her brother. Every time Yang Yi returned to his hometown, he would bring candy to the children in the village. "Uncle and Grandma asked me where you are from. I told them that you are my classmate and that you are here to play. They were very happy and said that you are welcome." Ding Xiang helped Yang Huan translate the Miao language. "Thank you. Thank you, uncles, aunts, grandpas, and grannies." Yang Huan quickly replied and nodded gratefully. The villagers of Miao village continued talking enthusiastically. Ding Xiang translated. "Everyone said that they didn't prepare anything because they didn't tell you in advance. It's too rude. Then they invited you to their house for dinner and killed a chicken to welcome you." So enthusiastic. Yang Huan was flattered. However, if everyone wanted to invite her to their house for dinner, how could she be in 2 places at the same time? Why don't we forget about it? I think everyone has a hard life. It's not easy to raise chickens and ducks. I'll go to your house and eat something simple. Yang Huan calmed down. She had been through hard times, so she was considerate. Ding Xiang thought so too. However, the enthusiasm of the uncles and grannies was a tradition in their village, so she was too embarrassed to remind Yang Huan. Now that Yang Huan had tactfully declined, Ding Xiang helped Yang Huan organize the words to persuade the villagers. Back at Ding Xiang's house, Yang Huan met Ding Xiang's granny. After recovering, the granny was still in good health. Although her back was hunched and her ears were not as good, she still planted vegetables and raised chickens in the small field behind the village. She was self-sufficient and tried not to trouble others. Ding Xiang's granny also talked a lot with Yang Huan. Even Ding Xiang could not understand some of the words and could not translate them. After sitting with the granny for a while, Ding Xiang was busy preparing dinner. She and Yang Huan only had a few buns in the afternoon and were already hungry. "I can't make a call. There's no signal in the mountain." Sister Ding Xiang, let me help you." Yang Huan took out her phone and wanted to inform Yang Yi that she was safe. When she saw Ding Xiang cooking, she wanted to help. Ding Xiang could not persuade her. You've been climbing the mountain for a day. You must be tired. You should take a rest. Ding Xiang's pot was taken away by Yang Huan, so she had to use a wooden basin to wash the vegetables. If you want to make a call, you have to go back to the village. There's no signal tower here. I forgot to tell you. It's okay. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I was tired when I climbed up, but after seeing so many enthusiastic villagers, I don't feel tired anymore. Yang Huan smiled and said while washing the rice, Sister Ding Xiang, your physical fitness is better than mine. I've been practicing martial arts since I was young, but my physical fitness is not as good as yours. After climbing the mountain for a day, you're still not tired. I'm used to it. Yang Huan chatted with Ding Xiang. But then again, the situation in your hometown is worse than I thought. I used to think that our hometown was very poor because it was so remote. But I didn't expect that your hometown was even poorer than when we were at our poorest. At least there were roads in our hometown, but on this mountain, there's no possibility of building roads at all. Ding Xiang sighed softly and said, Yes, I used to think that after I studied, I would be able to find a way to let the villagers in the village live a good life. But now, Ding Xiang couldn't continue. The frustrated expression on her face said it all. You can't change anything. You can only go out. Yang Huan said softly as she thought of her experience after leaving the village. Ding Xiang smiled and said, Yes, but it's hard to change the minds of the older generation. We can only place our hopes on the younger generation. I also hope that my brothers and sisters will have the chance to go out of the mountain and see the outside world like me. Studying. Studying is the best way to change one's fate. Yang Huan was not the same as she was half a year ago. With more experience, Yang Huan had a deeper understanding of how studying could change one's fate. We used to have a school in the mountain. It was built by an old grandpa who passed away a long time ago. Later, the village sent us a private teacher named Tao Shuping. I learned how to read and count from Grandpa Tao. Grandpa Tao didn't know English, but he was really responsible and taught us the basic knowledge patiently. Until one day, Grandpa Tao told me that Ding Xiang should go back to the village to study in middle school. That way you can learn more. Ding Xiang seemed to be reminiscing as she told Yang Huan about the past. With Grandpa Tao's help, Ding Xiang walked out of the village. However, when she was in high school, Grandpa Tao's health deteriorated and he passed away. Nevertheless, he still left some money for her to finish high school. Ding Xiang had to work and save up for the rest of the journey. She slowly made her way out by herself. What happened next? What happened to the school after Grandpa Tao passed away? Yang Huan asked, wiping the tears from the corner of her eyes. Her eyes were brimming with tears. After Grandpa Tao left, the school was once again abandoned. Although a few civilian teachers came one after another, not all of them had the same selfless dedication as Grandpa Tao. All of them were frightened by the hardships of White Potion Stronghold. The longest one stayed there for 2 weeks before all of them ran away. Ding Xiang wanted to finish high school and come back to teach, but the uncles and grandmas in the village didn't agree. They said that Ding Xiang was the first university student in the village and had to go back to school. She wanted to set an example for the children. Then what should we do? Another generation won't have the chance to study. Yang Huan said worriedly. It's fine. It's fine now. Ding Xiang smiled. Last winter, when Ding Xiang returned home, not only did she bring her grandmother down the mountain to see a doctor, but she also went to the village and found a solution to the lack of teachers willing to come to the village to teach the children. She personally paid for the private teachers and used money to keep them. She even hired 2 teachers to take turns teaching on the mountain. This solved the problem of not being able to reunite with their families for years on the mountain. Yang Huan was shocked when she heard Ding Xiang's story. No wonder. Sister Ding Xiang, I was wondering why you were so reluctant to spend money. Yang Huan looked at Ding Xiang and said touched. That's right, everything makes sense now. Previously, Yang Huan and Guizi had been wondering why Ding Xiang was reluctant to spend the high salary that Yang Yi gave her. She couldn't even afford to buy herself a new set of clothes. She usually wore the same old clothes. Yang Huan was different. Although she didn't spend lavishly, She wasn't as poor as before after her family's situation improved. She was willing to spend the money she needed. Usually, when she asked Ding Xiang to go shopping for clothes, Ding Xiang would always reject her. She even took out the clothes that Mo Fei gave her before and said to Yang Huan, "I have so many new clothes that I can't even wear them all." That's right. Guozi once suggested to Ding Xiang that she get a loan to buy a house in Jiangcheng. It was a profitable investment, but Ding Xiang didn't agree to it. It turned out that all the money she saved was used here. Chapter 555. However, Ding Xiang was too eager to let the children in the village get a good basic education that she ignored the evils of human nature. Or rather, she didn't dare to think in a bad direction after knowing that there was a way to let the teachers go up the mountain. After dinner, Yang Huan accompanied Ding Xiang to visit the children who were still in school. Ding Xiang was completely dumbfounded when they heard that the children and villagers doubtfully said that there were no teachers teaching them, and that the children were back to their original state of being unsupervised. How could this be? Ding Xiang said in disbelief. I saw the photos they sent me. Weren't my brother and sister still in school? Oh, it was the same for the first month. The two teachers took turns to come, but then it was the same as before. The teachers stopped coming. How could the teachers stay in a poor place like ours? A villager said to Ding Xiang. But something was wrong. Last month, when Ding Xiang called the village, why did the village education unit official tell Ding Xiang that the children were doing well, and had improved a little compared to before? It was worth mentioning that Ding Xiang had decided to fork out her own money to increase her teacher's allowance. She did not tell the elders in the stronghold about it, because she knew that if she did, the simple villagers in the stronghold would not be willing to make so many sacrifices for her. That was also why Ding Xiang hadn't been informed by anyone in the village for half a year without a teacher. Wait, you still gave them the money? Sister Ding Xiang. I remember you said that you send money to the village every month? On the way back, Yang Huan stared at Ding Xiang, who was in a daze, and asked. Ding Xiang's expression was bleak as she gently nodded. Oh, I know. It must be those corrupt officials in your village who took the money. Yang Huan immediately patted the wooden wall and said anxiously, Sister Ding Xiang, I've heard about this many times. It was the same in our county. Because we were poor and the country helped the poor, there was no way for the money to be given to us farmers. It was all taken by those officials. Yang Huan almost guessed the truth. Tush village was even poorer than Jui town. The 4,000 yuan that Ding Xiang sent back every month, after deducting the necessary living expenses and school fees, was almost equal to the salary of several civil servants in such a poor place. It was definitely a huge sum of money. This sum of money was placed in front of these officials who were afraid of poverty. How could they not be tempted? What's more, the teachers of White Yao Stronghold would run away one after another, but that position was still allocated by the government. It was just like the donkey in Donkey Gets Water. The teachers who ran away would still receive a monthly stipend, but who would receive it? The answer had been obvious for a long time. It could be said that even if Ding Xiang did not give the money, no teachers would come to White Yao Stronghold. This was because the money was easy to take. And now Ding Xiang had foolishly transferred money over. With such a huge sum of money, would the greedy people let go of this money because of their conscience? How could this be? Therefore, the people from the education unit made use of the fact that Baiyao Stronghold was unable to communicate with each other, and set up a plan to deceive everyone. In the beginning, they did hire 2 private teachers to go up the mountain to teach the children, and all the photos were taken in advance. But the good times did not last long. Ding Xiang continued to go back to Jiangcheng to teach and work, and the 2 private teachers took turns teaching. Before they could even think of running away, these people could not wait to dismiss the 2 teachers with fabricated reasons. Then they hired another teacher to go up the mountain to teach, but the salary was very low. That teacher ran away after a few days, and did not want the salary. Later, they were too lazy to act, and no more teachers went up the mountain. They used the old photos to trick Ding Xiang, and even urged Ding Xiang to transfer the money over every month. As for what would happen if Ding Xiang found out, they did not care too much. Now that they had the money, they would get it first. If Ding Xiang found out and did not give them the money, they would have gotten enough. Of course, Yang Huan and Ding Xiang did not know that much. But the next day before dawn, Ding Xiang and Yang Huan could not wait to go down the mountain and find the two private teachers. They knew that when the two teachers worked, they only received a meager basic salary and not as much as Ding Xiang said. These officials couldn't even bear to give money to these teachers when they were putting on an act. Ding Xiang could not hold it in any longer. When the sun was about to set, she and Yang Huan blocked the door of the village's education department and happened to block the director, Wang Disheng. Under Ding Xiang's questioning, Wang Disheng pushed up his glasses and said unhurriedly, "Comrade Ding Xiang, don't be anxious. Let's talk slowly." Not only did Wang Disheng not feel ashamed, he even denied what they had done and pushed the blame to the remote and desolate Baiyao stronghold. Even the teachers are not willing to go up the mountain. What do you expect us to do? We are also trying our best to find teachers for you. Don't worry, there will definitely be teachers. Our village attaches great importance to the education of the children in Baiyao stronghold, Wang Disheng said in a bureaucratic tone. Yang Huan was full of anger. She clenched her fists and asked, "Why did you lie to her and say that the teachers are still there, and that the students' results are improving? The children in the stronghold are not going to school." Comrade, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. You have to take responsibility for your words. Our village sincerely hopes that every child can receive an education, but there is a shortage of teachers now. The children can only study by themselves. Once we solve the problem, there will naturally be teachers to teach them. Wang Disheng beat around the bush and did not answer Yang Huan's question at all. Then what about her money? You didn't hire teachers for the stronghold. Return the money. Yang Huan's body was trembling. Anger was boiling in her chest. Money. Comrade Ding Xiang volunteered to donate it to the village. Although we can't use it in Baiyao stronghold, it is indeed shining and helping the children in other poor villages to study. We still have to thank Comrade Ding Xiang. But don't worry, we will definitely hire teachers for Baiyao stronghold next semester. We will not let the children go without books. We are doing this for the good of the children. Don't you think so? Wang Disheng looked at Ding Xiang with a smile, as if he was looking at a mountain of gold. Yes, my ass. Ding Xiang's expression was still gloomy. She did not know how to rebuke or defend herself. Finally, Yang Huan could not take it anymore. Sister Huan angrily reprimanded Wang Disheng, and he fell to the ground with a punch. Similar to the punch that Guizi landed on Tang Kaitai's eye, Yang Huan also punched Wang Disheng's eye, but the strength was different. Yang Huan had been practicing Hong Quan since she was young. Although she was very tired and her limbs were weak, the punch that was enhanced by her anger was like a fierce tiger dashing down the mountain. KO with one punch. Wang Disheng was knocked to the ground and fainted. Ah! Someone hit me. A woman from the education department screamed. She yelled and asked the village guards to arrest Yang Huan. Fortunately, Ding Xiang came back to her senses. She quickly pulled Yang Huan, who was still angrily scolding Wang Disheng, and escaped. After calming down, Yang Huan realized that she seemed to have gotten into trouble. There was even the sound of police sirens outside. In this place, it was someone else's territory. The village officials were like local tyrants. Ding Xiang also didn't know anyone. If she was caught, she wouldn't be able to call out to the heavens and the earth. Yang Huan and Ding Xiang hid, not daring to go back to the hotel. Then, they called Yang Yi and told him about the situation. Fortunately, there was a signal in the village. After hearing the whole story, Yang Yi did not blame Yang Huan, nor did he panic. Instead, he calmly said to them, "Don't go back to the village first. Let's find a way. You two go to the city first. They will never guess that not only did you not run home, you ran out instead. Then, wait for me in the city. I'll come over now. As for how to deal with it, we'll talk about it when I get there." Sister Huan and Sister Ding Xiang are in trouble. I'll go too. Guizi had heard the commotion. He did not even remove his makeup. He anxiously went to Yang Yi's side and said. Yang Yi was still holding a prop gun in his right hand. He gently poked Guazi's chest and said, "What are you going to do? What can you do? Are you worried that I can't solve it?" Yang Yi was still wary of Guazi. He was afraid that he would play a hero to save the damsel in distress and make his sister so touched that she would marry him. That would not do. Moreover, Yang Yi had never thought of using Guazi's father's power. He probably already had a way to solve the problem, a non-violent way. "I'm also worried about Sister Ding Xiang and Sister Huan. Big brother Yang, please let me go with you. If the two of us go together, we can take care of each other," Guazi pleaded pitifully. Chapter 556. In the end, Yang Yi brought Guazi with him. Although he was wary of Guazi, it was his natural reaction as a big brother to protect his little sister. However, Yang Yi had no prejudice against Guazi, and the two were still good friends. Taking the earliest flight, Yang Yi and the others arrived at the city closest to Maota City. However, there was no airport in Maota City, so Yang Yi and the others had to take a few hours' car from a neighboring city to reach their destination. At this time, Yang Huan and Ding Xiang had already arrived in the city. When Yang Yi and the others went to find them, the two girls were staying in a hotel, anxiously waiting for Yang Yi's arrival. "Brother!" Ding Xiang opened the door. Yang Huan got down from the bed in surprise and jogged a few steps. However, she stopped feeling guilty and lowered her head, not knowing what to say. She felt that she had caused a lot of trouble, and even caused her brother to come all the way to Maota City. "Good. That's good." Yang Yi took the lead and walked in. He patted Yang Huan's head and smiled at Ding Xiang. "Don't worry about anything else. I'll find a way to solve the problem for you." Ding Xiang saw Guazi coming out from behind Yang Yi. She was stunned. "Why are you here?" "I'm here to help," Guazi said with a grin. His smile eased the tension in the hotel room. "I was wondering why you were so stupid to give money to those vermin. Then, without supervision for more than a semester, you only realized it now." Ding Xiang pursed her lips, and her face darkened. This incident was a big blow to her. She had come with a passionate heart to help her hometown, but she did not expect to encounter such a disgusting thing. "Lil Gua, don't mention it," Yang Huan said unhappily. "No, what I mean is, Sister Ding Xiang, you shouldn't be so careless. You should at least discuss it with us. There are many ways to solve the education problem in your village," Guazi quickly said. "I'm just concerned about Sister Ding Xiang. From Ding Xiang's point of view, what she did was not wrong. Moreover, this is a great contribution. But little Gua is right. Ding Xiang, this is such a big matter. Why didn't you discuss it with us? You shouldered everything on your own. You don't treat us as friends at all." Yang Yi tried to smooth things over with a smile. Ding Xiang blushed and hurriedly waved her hands. No one knew if she was denying the greatness of her contribution, or denying Yang Yi's claim that she didn't treat them as friends. "Hey, big brother, you don't know how remote Sister Ding Xiang's home is. It takes almost a day to walk from the village to her village. She has to climb the mountain on foot. So many problems are not as simple as you think." Yang Huan could not help but speak up for Ding Xiang. "Let's not talk about that. Let bygones be bygones. Little Gua and I are here to solve the problem for you." Not only to solve the problem of those who are greedy for Ding Xiang's money, but also to solve the problem of education in the village that you are most concerned about, Yang Yi said. Ding Xiang looked at Yang Yi in disbelief and said, "Can it really be solved? How can the children go to school?" "I don't know yet, but there are professionals who can help you." Yang Yi smiled. Because they still had to wait for others, Yang Yi and Guazi checked into a hotel room next to Yang Huan and Ding Xiang. "By the way, how did you escape?" Guazi asked Ding Xiang curiously. "That Wang Dishing should be one of the local bullies in your village. It should be easy for him to find you if you took a bus, right? Teacher Li helped us. She has a car at home that is used to transport goods. She secretly sent us out and took a bus when we reached the county," Ding Xiang said. "Who is Teacher Li?" Guazi asked, puzzled. "Teacher Li Yongheng. She is one of the 2 private teachers that Wang Desheng hired. Later, he found an excuse to fire her. But Teacher Li is a good person," Yang Huan said. "A male teacher?" Guazi didn't know why he suddenly asked. He felt a little jealous. Not a male teacher. She is a female teacher, okay? Yang Huan couldn't help but laugh. But really, Li Yongheng sounds like a man's name. But Li Yongheng is really a woman. And I admire her. She used to be a female teacher, but she could climb so far to teach children. Zhu Luyan arrived the next day. Yang Yi and Zhu Luyan had been in contact because he donated money to the Dream Primary School Project every month. No, it was now called Hope Primary School Project. However, they hadn't seen each other for more than a year. Perhaps it was because Zhu Luyan often went to the mountains, but her skin was darker and thinner than a year ago. Let me introduce you. This is Zhu Luyan. Before Yang Yi could finish, he paused and thought about how to introduce Zhu Luyan. He was wondering if he should talk about Zhu Luyan's identity. At that moment, Guazi said in surprise, I remember now. Zhu Luyan, you were one of the top 10 most outstanding young men in the country last year. I even read about you in the newspaper. Guazi had a good memory. He looked at Zhu Luyan with admiration and said, For your girlfriend, you gave up your life and job in the capital. Then you threw yourself into the rural education industry. Your Hope Primary School project gave many children in the remote mountains the opportunity to study. Zhu Luyan was stunned for a moment. She shook hands with Guazi and smiled. You flatter me. I'm not as great as what the newspaper said. I only did some ordinary things. As for the Hope Primary School project, Brother Yang Yi also contributed money and effort. He was the one who came up with the name. Zhu Luyan didn't tell Guazi that the honor of being one of the top 10 was actually pushed by the family behind her. If she had a choice, she wouldn't want this title. It was too fake. But this meaningful project was initiated by you. I just moved my lips and helped you change the name of the Dream Primary School Project to Hope Primary School Project. Yang Yi smiled and said, Little Guo is right. You did do something practical and meaningful. However, their conversation still surprised Guazi, Yang Huan, and Ding Xiang. Especially Guazi. He vaguely knew about Zhu Luyan's background, but he didn't expect such a person to be related to Yang Yi. Guazi felt that he was a tiger pretending to be a pig. On the surface, he looked harmless and was just an ordinary fatty. However, in fact, he had a strong background and was the son of an official. But now, it seemed that Brother Yang was even more unfathomable. On the surface, he had a military background. Not only the Southwest Military Region, but the big shots in the Jiangnan Military Region were also said to have a good relationship with Yang Yi. Otherwise, why would they allow soldiers' assault to be filmed in the Jiangnan Military Region? Now he knew a big shot that he couldn't afford to offend. In contrast, Brother Yang was the real tiger pretending to be a pig. However, Zhu Luyan was different from other rich kids. He didn't like to be polite. After some small talk, he began to discuss countermeasures with Yang Yi. The problem with Wang Duxing and the others is easy to solve. Before I came here, I already called the Xiangxi Provincial Education Department. They will help to investigate and deal with any problems, Zhu Luyan said casually. This was a serious problem for Yang Huan and Ding Xiang, but Zhu Luyan didn't think it was a problem at all. They were just small officials in a small town. In their eyes, they were too insignificant. Moreover, they were in the right, so there was no need for them to use illegal means. They just needed to give an order from the top to let the people from the Discipline Inspection Department investigate, arrest, and punish a few corrupt officials according to procedures and objective facts. What was so difficult about that? Ding Xiang and Yang Huan looked at each other. They didn't expect the problem to be solved so easily. Little Zhu, the main problem is how to let the children in the village have a school. Think of a way, or set up a Hope Primary School in Baiyao Village. Set it up. I can bear the cost, Yang Yi said. Let's go and do a field investigation first. Zhu Luyan smiled and said, Without investigation, we have no right to speak. Chapter 557. Yang Yi didn't stay in Xiangxi for too long. Zhu Luyan's connections were still strong. In just 2 days, Wang Duxing and the other related personnel had been investigated. The only pity was that the money that Ding Xiang had donated previously had been squandered away. Although they could still get some of it back, it was impossible to return it to Ding Xiang. However, Ding Xiang wasn't sad because it was a blessing in disguise. Although she had lost her money, with the help of Yang Yi and Zhu Luyan, Baiyao Village's Hope Primary School was reopened. It used the original location of the primary school, but it was funded by the Hope Primary School project. They invited teacher Li Yongheng, who was willing to teach, and 2 other private teachers from the village to teach the children. Moreover, the Hope Primary School project would regularly invite some university volunteers to interact with the children and help them broaden their horizons. Ding Xiang didn't need to use her own money to subsidize the school anymore. Yang Yi had paid for it. Of course, Yang Yi also told Ding Xiang that if Ding Xiang really earned money in the future, she was welcome to donate to the Hope Primary School project. This was his personal charity. It was worth mentioning that the Hope Primary School project was now very big. Not only did Yang Yi donate a little money every month, but after it became famous, the donations from society had also increased a lot. Zhu Luyan and the rest also had more ability to help more children. Guozi really couldn't help much throughout the entire process because he was sick. This guy was still too stubborn. With his physical fitness, it was impossible for him to climb up the mountain. However, he still puffed himself up at his own cost. No, he was a fatty to begin with. After forcing himself to climb up the mountain, Guozi collapsed from exhaustion. While Yang Yi and the rest were busy surveying the terrain and analyzing countermeasures, little comrade Guo was lying on the bed, comfortably enjoying Ding Xiang's care. Of course, Guozi wasn't so thick-skinned. He struggled to promise Ding Xiang that when he returned to Rivertown, he would definitely get someone to send a batch of books, stationery, school bags, and so on to the children in the village. He wasn't here to be a burden. He would definitely make his own contributions. Yang Yi left with Guozi first because they still had to go back to shoot the movie. They had already delayed the crew for a few days, so they could not continue to be carefree outside. Ding Xiang waited for a few more days. After confirming that there would be no more problems this time, she left with peace of mind. She and Yang Huan set off again. According to their original plan, they were going to the capital as extras to gain experience. When Yang Yi and the others left, the sound of people studying in White King's stronghold could already be heard clearly. This little stronghold nestled deep in the mountains seemed to radiate with a joyous vitality. Time passed by quickly, and July passed by amidst all sorts of disturbances. The filming of The Fugitive went relatively smoothly. Even though it was delayed for a few days because of Yang Yi's incident, Yuanlei took the opportunity to film the scenes without Ludi, so the progress wasn't delayed. It was estimated that the filming would be completed by mid-August. There was progress on the copyright transfer of Yang Yi's other work, Prison Break. Wolf TV station showed enough sincerity. Not only did they present their filming plan to Yang Yi's negotiation team, they also offered a good profit-sharing condition. To show their sincerity, they also sent a team to visit China, including the director who would be directing Prison Break, Paul Tinyi. The director was very interested in Prison Break, and he wanted to meet Yang Yi face-to-face, so that he could understand the original author's thoughts and restore the details of the story to the greatest extent. Paul Tinyi? With the surname he's Chinese, right? Yang Yi curiously asked Lu Benji, who came to tell him the news. Yang Yi was not familiar with the directors in this world. He knew a little about the domestic directors, but as for the foreign directors, he only knew a few names that often appeared in the newspapers. He did not pay much attention to the rest. Yes, Mr. E is an American Chinese, but he looks more like a Caucasian. It is said that his mother is German. Lu Benji looked at his notebook and reported. What's his background? What works has he filmed? Yang Yi was more concerned about this question. Lu Benji told Yang Yi that director Paulton Yi actually had a lot of works. There were movies and TV series. His masterpiece was Criminal Thoughts, a famous crime drama. It mainly told the story of a police team composed of behavioral analysis experts. They used their psychological knowledge to analyze the thoughts of criminals and solve difficult cases. I seem to have heard of this TV series. It's quite famous, and it seems to have won a lot of awards. Yang Yi's memory was triggered. He seemed to have seen the introduction of this TV series. Yes, this TV series has won a lot of awards after it started filming, including the highest award in the TV industry, the Emmy Award. Lu Benji said to Yang Yi, "This means that Palton E does have some real talent. Moreover, he is filming a crime drama. It should be easier for him to film Prison Break." Yang Yi was interested in him. He decided to watch his TV series before meeting him. He wanted to see if he could meet his expectations. In August, Backwave's Facebook launched a web game called Friendship Ranch. Although the game was added to the Facebook page, it did not exist in the form of a plugin. There was no need to download or install it. One only needed to click on a button inside the Facebook page to log into the game. In order to promote this web-based game, Yang Yi personally wrote an advertising slogan for it in the micro-broadcast advertisement. "The boat of friendship capsizes easily. Please cherish your friendship and be careful when stealing vegetables." The first sentence was indeed from an internet celebrity in his previous life. Under Backwave's secret promotion, this sentence became popular all over the country within a few days. It was even used flexibly by a large number of netizens. For example, two good friends on the boat of friendship. One of them suddenly lost weight, and the boat of friendship capsized. Or two good friends on the boat of friendship took a photo together, and the boat of friendship capsized if they only photoshopped the photo. For a while, the jokes on micro-broadcasting were flying everywhere. At the same time, the game Friendship Ranch entered the sights of many people. Of course, Friendship Ranch was not very popular in the beginning. Only a small number of netizens who wanted to try it opened it. However, once they opened it, it was as if they were possessed. It was difficult for them to get rid of it. Planting vegetables, weeding, these simple operations of the game were nothing new. What made them crazy was that they could steal other people's vegetables, and even release bugs as pranks. A strange desire was satisfied. The netizens who started playing the game gradually became addicted. The few friends who played the game on Facebook were no longer enough to satisfy their needs. Therefore, more and more people joined in, and became addicted to the game. The number of registrations on Facebook increased greatly. Micro-broadcasting accounts could be used universally. More and more people registered on Facebook, and joined the game of stealing vegetables. There were even people who set their alarms to play the game in the middle of the night, in order to steal vegetables. This almost became a social phenomenon. Almost in the city, out of 10 people around you, 5 of them would steal vegetables. They would talk about stealing vegetables with relish when they went to work. The media couldn't help but report on this simple but explosive magical game. What made it so popular? Some people guessed that it was because it was simple and easy to play. Some people thought that it was because stealing vegetables satisfied people's greed to steal. Others guessed that it was because of its interactive nature. One could interact with friends, friends on the internet, and friends in real life. Naturally, it increased the game's playability. Here, the media even used a professional term put forward by a university professor: weak interaction. Unlike other strong interaction games, Friendship Farm did not require friends to be online at the same time. This reduced a lot of inconvenience, and made it convenient for people to play the game anytime and anywhere. However, although Friendship Farm became popular, Yang Yi did not feel optimistic. This was because he saw that although the number of registrations on Facebook that was tied to Friendship Farm had increased, the user stickiness was not high. When people played the game on Facebook, they rarely posted their thoughts on it, or wrote some diaries or uploaded some photos. Their joy or complaints about stealing vegetables were all posted on micro-broadcasting. Yang Yi got someone to create a one-click sharing function for ranking results. Both Facebook and micro-broadcasting could be chosen. However, very few people directly shared it on Facebook. They even patiently waited for the jump to micro-broadcasting to post their results. It looks like micro-broadcasting needs to be developed, not Facebook. We need to develop a mobile app for micro-broadcasting as soon as possible. Yang Yi knew some of the development trajectories. However, he did not expect that a social networking site like Facebook would not be able to develop in China. When Friendship Farm's popularity drops, Facebook's popularity will drop as well. It's time to consider SNS's offer and cash in on this project while it's still popular. That should be the best choice. SNS's position was similar to Yang Yi's QQ in his previous life. They were both leaders in the chat software industry. They had always been eyeing Yang Yi's Facebook and wanted to turn it into an SNS space. However, Yang Yi had set up professional barriers. Therefore, SNS could only propose an acquisition. This acquisition had been in the works for a long time. When microbroadcasting started to become popular last year, SNS had been eyeing it. Of course, the wealthy SNS wanted to acquire both microbroadcasting and Facebook. However, Yang Yi would never sell off microbroadcasting. Now Facebook was still a possibility. Just nice, with the success of Friendship Farm, Facebook became popular. Compared to before, SNS's desire for Facebook would be greater. Yang Yi would also be able to cash in more. Of course, Yang Yi would also hold back. He had registered the copyright of Facebook overseas and only sold the Chinese version of Facebook to SNS. Yang Yi did not have time to care about the Chinese version of Facebook. He might sell it again and the price would not be so simple. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.